start reviewing the copy one by one. Now, the way we're going to do this again is if we have we're going to save all like general questions, general stuff to the very end, right? We're only going to keep the discussion on the copy at hand, the principles at hand. So we're going to go through and read the email. I'm going to pause, go back and forth with the person who wrote it. I will probably open up for questions or comments on some of this material as we go through it. But in the meantime, just know that like where there'll be a time for general questions. So if you want to ask me about outreach strategies or how you're doing the sprints or something like that, like save it for the end. We're going to keep the conversation focused on this, and then we'll move on as we go through. So you guys can see the screen, right? Just say yes in the chat or something like that, so I know. You guys can see the Google Doc here with Mr. Noah Jackson. All right, perfect. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Then is Noah on the call, Mr. Noah Jackson? If so, feel free to unmute yourself and speak up.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, Noah, welcome to the call. I'm glad you can make it. So let's go ahead and let's just dive in. So since you're here, tell me a little bit about your price, your avatar, and what they want. And this, I had fun. This is lightsabers. This is different. This is a little out there for me. But yeah, tell me about your avatar and what they want.
Yeah, okay. So the avatar is obviously someone who loves and enjoys lightsabers. They probably watch a bunch of Star Wars movies and has gone into sabers. And
okay,
their problem,
like a mega geek, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And their problem is,
thankfully Tate's been on like Twitch, and he's had enough guests on there that fit this, so I can put a face to the avatar. Keep going. This is good.
The problem is that they keep buying sabers that are cheap and not durable. They keep breaking easily after a couple uses of it, you know?
Okay.
Their dream situation is to get a saber and acquire a saber that is actually durable and does not break after a few uses.
Okay, so I want to pause there. So why do they want a saber that's durable? Like, I get that they want to have one that's durable, but like, why does it need to be durable? What are they hiring that durable saber to do for them in their life? Does that make sense?
Yes. So the reason they want a durable saber is so they can keep using it without having to spend more money and buy more and more sabers.
Okay. So why do they want to use it? Like, explain to me why these people want to use lightsabers in the first place. Like, what's the point? Like, they have a magical lightsaber. They don't have to worry about durability. What are they going to do with it, and what are they going to feel as a result?
So they have two things they could
help me understand this avatar. Help me understand it.
I got you. Okay. So the reason they want it durable is so they can play with it with their friends. For example, like if two kids, they both bought these sabers, they started playing with it. If they broke, then they would have to pay more money. But if they got a durable one, they could constantly play with it and not have that problem.
Fun. So let's talk about, so you keep talking about like, I have to keep spending more money. Like, let's ignore money for a second. Let's imagine money isn't a part of the problem. Why did the reason they want this is so they can have uninterrupted fun with their friends. Like, explain to me why it's fun to fight with lightsabers with your friends. Like, just break it down for me. Help me understand.
So the reason it's fun for them to play with lightsabers is, well, they watched Star Wars movies, okay, and they wanted to also swing these sabers and I guess duel.
Okay, dream state. Be like Darth Vader. Be like the big Jedi guy or whatever. Yes, okay, yes. Cool. Makes sense. Okay. No, again, I might laugh and joke and like, tease this avatar a little bit, but that's whatever, right? We're here to help them achieve their dream state, be happy, right? If that's happiness for them, that's happiness for them. We joke and laugh, but I need to understand what they're actually aspiring to do, so then I know how to present the saber. Because it's one thing to say, hey, look, this is a cool, durable saber. Look how durable it is. It's another thing if you can, on top of that, be like, you buy this durable lightsaber so you can experience. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, let's get to know. So let's go ahead and let's dive into the actual content here. So I actually really like, so your subject line, tired of cheap lightsabers that snap on contact. This is a very direct subject line, but this definitely works, right? Mm-hmm. The cool thing about this is the people who read this and actually are experiencing the pain that your product helps solve, they will see this, they will resonate, they will click, right? This isn't going to make anyone else click. This is for people who are at the problem aware status. They know about this problem with their lightsabers. This isn't someone you have to educate about like lightsabers or whatever. Like, these are people who are who in there and they're experiencing the pain, they're tired of it breaking, they're going to click this link because there's some hope of getting what they want, right?
Yes.
It's cool subject line, definitely works, right? Your first line is, here's the thing. Now, I recommend you actually delete this line. This line doesn't do anything. It doesn't add to the copy. It doesn't subtract. I mean, it only subtracts the copy. It doesn't really do anything. If you delete it, the email flows just as well, if not better. Like if you say, here's the thing, you probably spent several $100s on junk. If you delete that and you just say, you've probably spent several $100s on junk, and just keep launching right into it, it's virtually identical. The effect is virtually identical, right? But instead of having to read an empty sentence that doesn't have any kind of relation to me as the reader, you go straight into something that's about me, that's relevant, right?
I get it.
Does that make sense?
Go straight to the point, right?
Usually speaking, you go straight to the most disruptive and intriguing element right off the bat. You don't want to like beat around the bush and drop this empty, here's the thing type language that doesn't really do anything. It's just like you getting ready to say something. Instead of getting ready to say something, just say something. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Let's keep going. So you probably spend hundreds of dollars on junk. What kind of junk? The junk that makes you mad the most. Trash sabers with fragile electronics that claim to be built for play, only to snap like dry noodles the moment you pull them out of the box. How much money have you thrown down the drain? How many times have you been excited that you finally got your hands on a decent saber, only to have your heart snapped, heart ripped from your chest as yet another fat wad of cash lies across the room in the form of broken plastic and shattered expectations? Now, this is actually like pretty decent writing. I like this part where you're trying to actually amplify this point. I think that focusing on the amount of money that they've wasted on sabers is actually not the most powerful emotion you want to push here. If you talk about their shattered dreams, like the fact that they were so excited to finally get to like, do some lightsaber duel or whatever, and they finally got to do it with their friends and they broke and they couldn't anymore. I feel like that's an emotion that would actually motivate them to purchase a durable lightsaber. Instead of like trying to be like, listen, man, you spent like $732 in the last 12 months on lightsaber. You should buy a good one, right? Like one is an emotional and an engaging reason to do something, and the other is like a logical. And I know these guys are like, way into logic and math and accounting and stuff, but like people are still they still are motivated by emotion, right? So I think I would probably get rid of all the stuff about wasting money. Like the wasted money is a cherry on top. That's just a little thing you sprinkle at the very end, maybe on the sales page, right? But right here, you talk about their shattered dreams. They get excited. They've just, they've saved up. They bought a new lightsaber. It's so exciting. They're finally going to hang out with their other friends and, I don't know, dress up like Jedis or something and fight each other. I don't know. And then they go to do it and then it breaks and then they're terribly sad and they cry and I just have to watch someone fight with lightsabers instead of actually do it themselves. I don't know. Like I think that emotion is going to be way more powerful for driving action and desire for this product than talking about the money they lost. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So instead of focusing on the money they spent, I should focus on their dream of becoming just like the lightsaber character they dream to be.
Either that or the pain that they feel when their lightsaber breaks, like because it stops the fun, right? Because they want to have fun, and when it breaks, it stops the fun, right? They want that uninterrupted kid time, right? I don't know, right? You're just like enjoying like the fantasy of it all, right? And when it shatters, it breaks that. I'd probably focus on the aggravation of that and present this solution as the way to avoid that problem and then get to spend all the time they want in, I don't know, a Jedi or something. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I like this stuff right here. Only to have your heart ripped from your chest is yet another fat wad of cash. I probably would change this fat wad of cash. Lies across the room in form of broken plastic and shattered expectations. Like that is good. That is that's a way to amplify the pain. I really like that. So let's keep going. Well, dynamic saber is the place that won't give you plastic noodles that break into mirrors, break like mirrors. I'd delete well. Well is just you're trying to transition somehow into selling. You don't really know how. Just delete it and just start teasing the solution, right? Just tease it. Just straight up tease it. It's no big deal. I would delete that. I'd go straight into it. I would actually tease because right now you kind of launch into this like sales portion of it. I thought your emails would come to a close here, and then I like realized that I pasted a ton more in here. I would probably say like I'd probably start teasing this better, more durable version of lightsabers that exists out there or whatever. I would probably start adding proof elements to back up that claim. I'd probably have a review from someone who's like, I got to finally play with my lightsaber without it breaking. I was so happy or something. I don't know. That like specifically backs up that claim. And I would tease some special reason why this one source is the best place to go find this thing. You know, because of our unique 7-step, whatever review testing process, we guarantee that all of our stuff is like never going to break or whatever. You give them some type of curiosity or desire to go find out more information on the page, because right now you go straight into like selling this the saber, and you're cramming in a bunch of different ideas. You're talking about they ship to the US, UK, and Germany. You're talking about all the brands they carry. You're talking about all this stuff. Again, you're starting to sell the lightsabers here. You're not selling the lightsabers, you're selling the click, right? You're just trying to get them to go onto the page and learn more about their lightsabers and buy, right? You don't have to sell the saber here. You just need to sell the click to go look at that better sabers, right? So
I got you.
I would tease that instead.
So should I move the testimonial, like a testimonial up there?
Listen, like I think a testimonial would be good. I'd probably delete almost everything from here on and start over again. I'd probably make a claim about how great this is, like, you know, about these dynamic sabers or whatever having, you know, superior, more durable lightsabers because of some special whatever process. Tease it, make it sound cool and curious. And then I would probably put a testimony to back up that claim. So because the way the testimonials work is they're used to back up a claim. So when you make a claim in copywriting, you say, hey, these are super durable lightsabers. They never, ever break ever, right? Let's just say that's your claim, right? Now, when someone reads that claim, they're either going to believe it or they're not. They're either going to just accept it or they're going to be skeptical. Now, you want to address that skepticism by providing proof, right? So whether that's, some fact about how it's produced so that they can't ever break ever, a testimonial from someone saying, I love these lightsabers, they never ever break. That's the type of proof to back it up, or some type of scientific study or whatever. That one's tricky. You got to be careful not to make it like boring geek stuff. Because even geeks get bored of numbers and facts and stuff like that. So,
gotcha.
So I would probably make the claim, hit the proof, hit another tease again, and have a link to the thing. So, because right now your CTA is like, click this link to get the actual saber like in the movies and not another plastic noodle that breaks before you even use it. Dynamic sabers, like that's not too bad of a CTA. You're kind of hitting on some of their things. You're teasing the dream state. I don't think it's terrible, right? And then you have the link, but I would definitely change these, because right now you're just talking about how much they love the sabers, the sounds, cycle suit colors. Like, then again, this email is not about colors. It's not about how fast it ships. It's about how durable it is and how it just allows you to play, right? So all these like testimonials are cool, but they don't actually
focus on the point that
what we're talking about. We have one main idea for this email, and that is durable lightsabers allow you to keep playing and not have your dream shattered and broken into a million pieces, right?
I see.
You want your testimonials and everything, all the elements to be connected to that idea, right? So
I'm focusing on multiple ideas there. Is that what the problem I'm having?
Oh yeah, that's a big problem, right? You need to get crystal clear about the single idea you're going to focus on in the email. Keep it focused on that. Keep it focused on the emotions around it, the most powerful driving emotions there, and keep it short, sweet, to the point, doing those things.
All right, I'll focus more on durability, and I'll find a testimonial that specifies durability more than anything else.
That'd be better. Yeah. And I'd probably rip out some of the stuff about saving money and how much money they've spent. I'd probably just drop that down towards the bottom of the list of things you talk about, especially in this email. So, all right, cool. Do you have any questions for me, Noah, about this? Anything at all?
About the length. Should it be shorter? Like, is there anything I could just cut out completely?
Yeah, there's lots of things you can cut out completely. The first line you can cut out completely. All the stuff about spending money can be cut out completely. This entire long rambling part here about where it ships to in different brands, you cut that all out. This should be under 150 words. This could be a fast, easy, like 90 to 100 word email that would crush it, I think, if you just focus on the emotion.
Gotcha. All right.
That's one of the reasons I had you guys focus on 150 word limits, is because it keeps you from putting in too many ideas. Because if you only have 150 words, you usually can only really fit one idea in 150 words, and it keeps you from going off into crazy places. That makes sense?
Yeah, that does. I see where I went wrong, because this is about 230 words long, and because of that, I added a couple ideas in there, which I should only have one.
Yeah,
that's a mistake I made. About the title or the subject line, should it be shorter than that?
I mean, your subject line's fine. This subject line's okay. It's not the biggest thing to worry about here.
Gotcha. Other than that, I don't think there's anything else I should ask.
Cool. No, this is good, man. This is a good submission. You ask good questions. We were able to cover some good material here. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna open up for the rest of the chat. What other questions do you guys have about the stuff we specifically talked about here with his copy? Any questions about this content? Jazz, what do you got?
Hi, Andrew, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
All right, so I understand the part about having, let's say, sort of like proof that these line of sabers are more durable and stronger than the others. However, I'm thinking if you spend, let's say, the first half of the email pressing on their pain, right, on the emotions, have them thinking about maybe the 1, 2, or 3 times that they had bought a secondhand or crap saber and it broke on them, and you're focusing on that. Wouldn't I'm just wondering if it would be better, like in other, like when you're selling other products, just like that principle, to just leave them with that pain and then have them, like, instead of having a section where you're kind of validating the product, just leave them on that state where you're kind of impressing the pain, and like have the CTA to alleviate it. I don't know if that makes any sense.
You build up the pain, you tease the solution, and you give them a CTA, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's essentially what a PAS email is.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't take the pain away. You don't take the pain away, but you can tease the, like, what it looks like now. You'd be like, look how terrible things are here. Look how great they could be here. There's a secret little method to get you from here to there. Click the link to discover it, right? You have to know that clicking the link is going to alleviate their pain. So as long as you connect those ideas, you magnify the pain, you help them experience the pain. And as long as they know that the CTA is going to alleviate that pain, you're good to go. But you usually have to connect the idea. You can't just be like pain, 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 link, right? Pain, pain, pain. Here's the way to get out of this pain. Here's the link. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, I understand it.
Yeah. All right, Jaden, what do you got?
Thanks.
It's just a question about the testimonials. If you had a video testimonial, would you ever add that in an email, or would you link to that to another page?
So typically email testimonials are better on a sales page. They're harder to consume inside of an email. They're harder to embed inside of an email. Typically speaking, it's better to have that on a sales page. Yeah. You just want a quick blurb of a testimonial too. Like if you drop a testimonial, like just like 1 to 2 sentences of it. You don't want the full paragraph. You want just a quick blurb that hits on the part that you just talked about. And then you boom, have the rest of it happen on the sales page.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks.
All right, Luke, what do you got?
Hi, can you hear me?
Luke Garman is the guy I see here. So,
Huh?
You mean Lane by chance?
yeah, sure, Lane.
Yeah, sorry
for
about that. All right. So
Wait, what?
when you
Sorry, Luke. We'll
No.
get to you in a second. I misread Lane's name. Lane, go ahead. What's
Oh,
your name?
I'm sorry.
Or
I thought you were reviewing my copy.
Oh, good.
oh, all right. So when you were talking to him about the idea, or not the idea, but not using like multiple ideas, like talking about money, and then also that it's durable and that it's this, that, and the next thing. Is it better when you're working on like a short, simple piece like this to just stick to one thing all the way through, or is it bad to always have or to have an extra idea in there about other things?
So usually you want to have one main idea, one main focus.
Yeah.
It's okay, sort of as like an advanced move to like slowly like sneak a second idea at the very end, maybe.
Okay.
Or to, there's sometimes where you can put maybe 2 ideas in there if you like stack them or like connect them in the right way. But most of the time, and for most beginners, so that means you and anyone else on this call,
Yeah.
basically, just focus on one idea. And that's all you really need to focus on.
All right.
Yeah. Other ideas, you run the risk of sounding crazy. So
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you.
no worries. Ivan, what's your question?
Yeah, you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Yeah, so I was wondering, like, this is more of a grammatical question. Like he said here, like the junk that makes you mad the most, and like 2 dots at the end. And like he's saying that he should like say more and more things. Like he just said, trash sabers with fragile electronics that claim to be built for play. And like she should say other things like junk that makes us the most. Because like the way he put the junk that makes you mad the most, and he's want to say like few other things, yeah. And
So,
that's
so as far as I understand the grammar here, like when you put that colon, you can have just one thing. It's not like a list that has to follow that. As far as I understand, I think that this whole part here is structured poorly, not because of grammar or anything else, but just because it's not easy to read and consume, right?
Yeah, okay.
So yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Let's do JC and then Martin, and then we're going to keep going to the next piece of copy. So JC, what's your question?
Hi there. Forgive me if this comes across as a bit of an ignorant question. I'm still working through this print, so forgive me if this is an obvious question.
Let's go for it.
But if I understand this correctly, this is it's like a dick email, correct? Disrupt intrigue click. Am I right with that?
First of all, we typically call those DIC emails.
Okay.
You can call it whatever you want though, but yeah, typically we call them DIC emails.
Okay.
Second of all, this is more of actually a PAS email. There's like one person every call that said like asked that, so it's not a big of a deal. But
Okay.
yeah, this is more of a problem agitate solution, right? PAS, right? Because we're talking about this problem, we're agitating it with this vivid imagery, and then he's presenting the solution, and it's not really a high curiosity or intrigue style email. This is just like, you got this problem, it really sucks, here's a solution. It's kind of a special solution, go find out.
Understood.
Right?
Understood. That,
Yeah.
my question is,
Yeah.
in what scenario would you use a HSO? Is that right? I don't know if I'm saying it. So you wouldn't.
Yeah, the hook
this
story
isn't-
offer.
Yeah. Sorry. Carry on.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, HSO. Yeah, HSO, you typically use that when I would probably use that as a follow-up here. I would tell a story of someone who was like fighting with some lightsaber or whatever and feeling all big and powerful, and it's shattered into a million pieces. And then fast forward a week, he got his new lightsaber from an undisclosed location and was able to enjoy his time as a geek for like hours and hours on end. I would probably say something like that, and then there would be the link at the end, right? So you can do hook story offer emails. I mean, they're good for almost at any stage of the funnel, but they're especially or an email sequence, but they're especially useful when you're looking to build rapport with your reader because you're telling a story where they can identify with it. And if you need to shift world beliefs, right, or shift worldviews, if they have a belief about how the world is or how it works, then the HSO is a good, through a story, you can shift some of those beliefs a little bit better. So that's a better time to use HSO.
So you'd use it as a follow-up, correct? Yeah.
You could. I could see how one would work really well in a follow-up in this email sequence, but yeah, you can use them. You can use them anywhere in a funnel. You can use them on a landing page. You can use them on a sales page. You can use them in the first email. You can use them the last. Like it's a very versatile framework. HSO is.
Awesome. Thanks for that.
Yeah. So, all right, let's answer Martin's question, and then we'll go on to the next piece of copy.
Okay, my question is if the single idea at the time does apply to HSO too. Like if you are trying to write down the whole story, which is probably long, into like 150 words, if you are just focusing on one pane or like more panes in that story.
Typically, you're going to focus on one key pain or one key desire, typically. You might garnish it. You might have a line that supplements it with a secondary thing that's also important, but probably you're going to pick one main pain or one main desire and focus on that.
And do you like put in the text also more specific details of the story, like more situations that happen with it, or just like the one which connects to the pain, the specific pain?
It's not that hard or fast. Like there's not like a specific way you have to do it, right? Like what an HSO email should do. How one idea should be communicated. Like you have some flexibility to blur the lines on how it actually gets actually executed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, guys, cool. Let's move on to the next piece of copy here. So we've done the dynamic sabers. Now, Luke, it is your turn to go ahead and join in on this call. Luke, are you out there still?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, I'm gonna ask everyone else to lower your hand so that we can get to everyone else's questions about this copy itself. Because you guys all had questions about the last piece of copy. You might have questions about this. When I open up for it, get ready to raise your hand and we'll get you taken care of. So Luke, tell me about your avatar and what they're going through.
So this is for people who use a 3D program called Blender. It's not for
Okay.
people who use like actual blenders. It's just the name of the program. And so the current situation, so when you create a model, the computer has to render it and make it into the final image. And sometimes those times can be like really long. So sometimes they have to sacrifice like quality for like how long it takes, and it's not really good. Dream situation is just to be able to render without having to sacrifice the quality. But they also want to do it quickly.
Okay. So why do they? So let's talk a little bit more about their dream situation, right? Because right now you'd be like, oh, they love to render without it being difficult. So what would their life look like if the problem didn't even exist? Like if rendering was infinitely quick, what would they do? Like why does, like, let's imagine that rendering speed isn't even a problem. Like what are they trying to do that hindering speed, like rendering speed is stopping them from doing? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes, so the main problem with render speeds is like when you're making some sort of film, because you know the Disney movies, for example, those take like years to render because like every single little frame has to be rendered. So when you're creating films and stuff, it could take like a while to get it to a client.
So
Like let's say,
again, let's not talk about rendering. Like, what are we trying to achieve here? So they're trying to like make videos or animation. What is like, what's a successful project? What are they actually trying to do here beyond rendering itself?
well, they could
Deliver
be
stuff to
trying to do,
clients. Like, what are they trying to do?
yeah, clients. They could be just making art for fun. Um, those are pretty much the main two.
Okay. Interesting. Because when I ask about dream outcome, typically it's not micro focus, it's macro focus, right? It's like they want to do this so that they can accomplish Y, right? So these guys are trying to get their stuff to render more quickly. It's so they can work on bigger, better projects with clients and have faster timelines, or it's so they can create cooler and better art. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like there's a difference there between the scope of the dream outcome. Because if you're just focused on, and Luke, you can unmute yourself, it's no big deal. But like if Luke is, or if the person is trying to, no one wakes up and they're like, man, when they're a little kid, they don't wake up and they're like, you know what I want to do when I get older? I want to render really quickly. Like I want my stuff to render so quickly. Like they want to be like a successful movie producer or like some type of like they might actually have the desire to be a successful like animator. Sorry, apologies for the sound, guys. I'm just like in a Starbucks. The Marriott I'm staying in is like the only Marriott in the world with bad Wi-Fi. So apologies for the background. But you see what I'm saying? Like the dream outcome, what people want is actually separated from the problem, right? When you're living a dream life and you solve the problem, you forget about the problem, right? The problem disappears, right? You forget about solved problems. And when we talk about the dream outcome, we want to talk about the world that exists after they've solved the problem. Is that do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. Okay. So we kind of understand that here with in regards to like the digital, like the Blender rendering stuff. And now, what's the problem that's keeping them from doing that? It's just because they have their settings set up wrong? Like why does it take, like, what is the problem they don't know about and that you're going to help them solve?
Yeah, so this is for a YouTube video where they find a new solution. So there's no real problem that they're aware about, but there's a possible solution that the creator of the YouTube video just discovered.
Okay. So there's like some setting you change, and then all of a sudden your rendering speed goes way up. Is that it?
Yeah, something in the code. I just made it up.
Cool. All right. Fine. All right, I think we've got enough to go with. So let's dive into your copy. So your subject line is, you'd be surprised how many Blender users miss out on this. Okay, so the biggest issue I see with this is the use of this. Miss out on this. This is a vague and empty tease. This would be way more powerful if you connected to a real pain or real desire, right? Like the secret to lightning fast render speeds that 99% of Blender users don't know about, right? that's a more powerful subject line. It might be a little longer and we cut it down a little bit to make it fit the subject line bar a little bit better, but that's a more powerful fascination than just saying you'd be surprised how many Blender users miss out on this, right? You want to connect it to that thing that's actually important. The way I like to think about disrupt, right? The way I like to think about subject lines is humans have evolved over like millions of years or whatever, thousands of years to detect two things. We detect things that are dangerous to us or things that I guess it's three things really, right? Like it's fight, like things that we need to, okay, it's either things you can eat, things you can mate with, or things that will kill you. Like those are the three things that people are designed like on a base level to pay attention to, right? So if your subject line can be connected to either an opportunity, a threat, or status, you will typically get a significantly higher amount of people whose eyeballs will like lock onto your subject line and decide to open it than if you just like have some vague empty statement that's just ambiguous and they might want to solve it because it's a mental riddle. Do you see what I'm saying? There's a difference between that. If you can connect it to an actual desire or a threat or an opportunity or a status play, you're going to get significantly higher performance out of your subject lines. Does that make sense to you, Luke?
Yeah, I got that.
Cool. Let's keep going here. So your first line is some wildly productive 15 minutes have just happened. In fact, those last 15 minutes may have just saved me 15 hours of Blender agony. This first line is a very passive statement. Some wildly productive 15 minutes has just happened, right? Have just happened. Like this is like saying that there are these 15 minutes that have occurred somewhere in the ether that were wildly productive. It's not connected to me. It's not connected to you. It's not connected to anybody. It's just these minutes that have happened. It's passive language, and I would recommend you create a more direct, strong statement. I made an example here, right? I just avoided 15 hours of Blender agony by investing 15 minutes of my time. What were you doing in those 15 minutes? Insert guru's name here, question mark. I wasn't, and then you dive into the rest of it, right? Like you can make a single powerful statement that's disruptive and creates curiosity and it's connected to their dream state and their pain, instead of doing an ambiguous, empty, ethereal 15 minutes that happens somewhere in the universe. Do you see what I'm saying? Like there's a difference and it consumes differently. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that makes sense. Because like
Yeah.
I never understood why people want me to like avoid the passive voice, but that kind of makes more sense.
There's sometimes when you use passive voice, right? Like it's not always bad, but when you're trying to grab someone's attention and keep their attention, passive voice is not how you do it, right? People that speak in passive voice at the very beginning, they don't catch attention. Maybe there's some times where you might want to use passive voice to massage their ego a little bit or redirect their focus for something, right? Like there might be a place for it, but it's certainly not, and especially not like that first line where you're trying to, again, grab their eyeballs and earn their attention for the rest of the 150 words you're about to play for them. You want to use strong voice, dynamic, bold, exciting, big voice, right? Not passive voice. So let's go through the rest of this, right? So yeah, I gave you a slight rewrite here. And to be quite frank, let's go to the rest of the copy. So in fact, those last 15 minutes may have just saved me 15 hours of Blender agony. And to be quite frank, I wish I had experienced them sooner. So what was I doing those 15 minutes, right? I like these questions like this. You've done this later down here where you've done like questions from the reader. That's a good way to write an email to get them to kind of engage with it. You're forcing them to ask those questions. Even if they're not asking those questions, now you force them to ask those questions. So you're controlling it, right? It's like the classic politician speak, right? Where they ask you a question and instead of answering their question, you ask yourself a new question and answer it, right? You know, like there's that classic example in like the Zootopia movies that came out like, I don't know, however long ago, right? Where they're like, did I do this one thing? Well, yes, I did. Did I do that? Well, yes, I did. Well, no. Like that's like a really common way of doing it. But it's a way you can control the dialogue, right? And as a writer, that's what you're doing. You're controlling the dialogue in their brain. So I really like that you did this down here. You've done it up here, but you might want to separate it and format it differently. See how this part where you're having them ask those questions to the writer in their mind, you have it italicized. I recommend you do the same thing up here. So what were you like, and I did that in my example. What were you doing those like 15 minutes, blah, 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 right? I would make that a separate line, italicized just like this, because that's a really good way to control the narrative. And I'm glad you did it. I think that's like an effective way. What prompted you to do this? Were you modeling something or is it just something you'd observed and decided to do as well?
It's actually for a client. I just wanted to practice because I wanted to make sure when I sent out the actual email that it would increase conversion rates. So I was just practicing.
Okay. But what I mean is this little line here, or this method of acting as if you're the reader asking the guru questions here, like specifically this line I've highlighted. This is not a tactic I have explicitly taught inside of HU2, and I'm curious where you picked it up. Did you find it in another email that you liked? Did you think of it all by yourself?
You know Daniel
where it
Fossil?
Yeah.
Daniel
Yeah.
Fossil?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bringing out his stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got some of his writing in the swipe file. Good stuff. Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's keep going here. So you're starting to tease the thing here. So what was I doing in those 15 minutes? Now you're gonna start teasing through the like not statements. I wasn't optimizing my render engine. I wasn't removing nodes to speed up render times. I was relaxing on the porch with my dog, Jamie, right? Okay, now they're supposed to be like, wait, what? Like, doesn't make sense. And it's literally what you have them ask next. Wait, what's? But you said it was the most productive 15 minutes of your life. Oh, you bet it was. The thing is, I wasn't doing any of the work. I would probably start teasing the way here. I'd probably say, thing is, I found a way to not do any of the work or something like that. I'd probably start teasing the method instead of just what you did. In my latest video, I explain how to make your computer work for you, so that you can spend time on the porch without a worry in the world. It's not like the robots have anything better to do anyways. Again, you're kind of like talking to voice. It's cool, but you do find out how instead of save yourself hours of render torture. Again, this is probably where I would connect this to the dream state. So in my latest video, I explained to you how to make your computer work for you, so you can create wildly amazing whatever videos while relaxing on the porch, right? Well, and letting your computer do the rest, right? That would amplify this and make this a little more of a valuable thing in their eyes, because you're now connected to the thing that they want. The idea of the phrase "so you can" is an extremely important when we start tacking on to things like this, right? When you start stating benefits or features, like, oh, you can have your videos rendering for you while you're sitting on the porch, so you can connect it to a higher order desire, higher order thing, right? If you can at least even just answer that question in your mind, it makes it easier for you to take that writing and move it up and move them further up in like the desire hierarchy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay. But you do find out below in 7 minutes how to save yourself hours of render torture. If you can add just one level of specificity here about how they're going to do that without telling them the whole answer, that would probably make this just a little more curiosity enhancing, and you get a little more clicks. But I think overall, this is a fairly good email. You've got the bare bones of what needs to happen. You need to change your subject line. You need to change the beginning part. And I would probably smooth out a little bit here towards the end, but like this is a good solid start for an email, my friend.
Thanks. So, and that last part, when you said like add a little bit more to the CTA on like how to do it, I'm just curious, like how would you go about squeezing that in? Because I feel like it might be too long for a CTA if I just added it in. So
how do they actually solve this problem? Like, tell me the answer to the question, like how does this actually work?
So they would just go into the YouTube video, and it's like 7 minutes, it's really quick. And then they go back into the program, they change the code or do whatever they got to do. And then
so you don't know how they actually change the code or whatever, right? You don't know how it actually works.
No,
did you watch the video? Did you watch the video?
No, this is just like an example. Like there is no
this
video.
is made up. This is just like, this doesn't exist. Okay. Now this makes it kind of difficult because now we don't know what we're actually working with made up land, right? And made up land, it's not specific enough. It's usually harder for us to actually get real practice. I recommend when you do practice and when you're trying to get better at this, you actually pick real things that exist and write for them, like real videos. In this case, we're trying to drive some of the YouTube video or real products. It's significantly better than working for a made up client with a made up product and a made up avatar, right? Because that's so much ambiguity that you don't actually have enough concrete details to tease with, right? Okay, so let's say they had to like go change some settings inside of their Blender thing or whatever, right? Let's just say that's what it is. So I'd say find out below in 7 minutes the 3 changes you need to make to your settings to save yourself hours of render torture, right? That's enough of a specific detail about what the thing is without telling them the exact settings they need to change. So they're it's specific and real enough in their mind, they're going to be curious enough to see the answer on that video, right? You see the difference between just saying, find out 7 minutes how to save hours of rendered torture, to save yourself hours of rendered torture, how it's better to say, find out below in 7 minutes, the 3 changes you need to make to save yourself hours of rendered torture. Like that's just specific enough that the brain can now latch on. You see the difference?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. It definitely uses real stuff. And this is why, like in the beginner sprints, I give you real examples to use with. I'm like, hey, use this sales page, use this product page, go search for stuff around this, like this product. It's because it gives you enough reality or enough real things to sink your teeth into. The brain requires a certain level of information or specificity for it to latch onto, right? Empty concepts, empty floaty things, the brain can't really latch onto with much desire, but specific real things can latch, like your brain can actually latch onto with desire, right? For example, if I just say the word woman, like none of you get terribly excited, but if there was an actual beautiful, gorgeous woman right in front of you, it's a different story. Do you see the difference like between like a specific real embodiment of something versus an empty concept? Like the more specific you can be, and like obviously you can't reveal the entire thing into the reader's mind inside a short form email because they won't care. But if you can make it feel specific, make it feel real, make it feel like one specific real thing, the brain can latch on, right? And this is why I had you guys create an avatar, right? Because it's one thing to have an empty concept of the target market or the ideal customer type, right? It's another thing if you can create a real single instance of that, an embodiment, specific person in your mind that fits that target market. Your brain can latch onto that and produce the kind of insights and persuasive writing that you need to actually influence a person like that. So the specificity is an important part of the mental process, both as a writer and as the person reading and consuming it, right? So you have to be aware of it as a writer. It's extremely important. Bonus lesson. Does that make sense, Lou? Do you have any other questions about this?
No, I think that's pretty good. Thank you.
Yeah. You guys in the chat are pretty intelligent, so you guys can see the matrix. So let's start answering your guys' questions here in the chat. So go ahead and raise your hand if you guys have. Wait, first, Luke, is there anything else about this email you want to talk about? Any questions here?
No, I think I'm good.
All right, cool. This is a good email. A lot of good stuff here. Let's go ahead and do questions. So, Dean, you got your hand up. What questions do you have about this email? Dean, you got like 3 seconds, so I'm gonna move on to the next guy.
I'm sorry, are you saying JD or somebody else?
Dean Dajik.
Jesus?
No, we're moving on. Amir, you're next. What's up, Amir?
Oh, I'm good. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you. What's your question, my friend?
About the one saying only one issue in the copy, right? So I wrote a PS from a sales page about living off your passion.
Wait a second.
So
is
in
this
there,
question
like
about this guy's copy right here, or is this a question about your copy? Is it related to this, or is it just a question?
No. I'm asking about the problem with explaining only one issue, one big idea in the copy.
Sure.
Okay. So in the first line, I asked like you have like these all problems. You might have these problems.
Okay.
And I list out like two or three problems that might experience because these are not they are like common problems that people face when they have a problem with this.
Amir, it sounds like you're asking about your own copy. It sounds like you're asking about a general question that we covered in the last email. Let's save this to the end and I'll let you ask it then. But we're gonna move on and make sure we're asking questions about specifically the concepts we're talking about in this email. Does that make sense?
Okay.
All right, Mohammed, what's your question? Mohammed Asim.
Yes, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's a bit noisy. Who is the avatar exactly here?
Who's the avatar?
About the avatar.
About the avatar?
Yeah.
What's your question about the avatar?
The avatar in this copy.
That sounds like a question for Luke. Luke, who's the avatar for this copy?
Yeah.
Um, 3D modelers, people who work in a 3D program and who are trying to improve the speed at which it takes to actually create the image, essentially.
So Luke, if I was going to give you some advice on that, I would tell you to create a specific version of that in your mind. I'd be like, okay, it's a guy named Zane. He's 22. I'd probably go look at the guy's testimonials for his page to see if there's any actual examples. He's 22. He's going to university for digital animation. He's really into it. He watches all the videos and tries to figure out how they do it. Like, I'd create a specific version and like a picture in my brain of that person. Just as a piece of advice. But that answer your question, Mohammed? Did that clear up the issue for you? Do you have more questions?
Yeah. That's all. Thanks.
Cool. Like that. Easy questions. Anthony, what's your question?
May I give him some advice?
You have a comment about this? Go for it.
All right. So I'm in intermediate. So
you're the big G. You know everything. Okay, keep going.
Oh, I'm not experienced yet. I need the big bucks first.
Oh, let's hear the intermediate wisdom. Let's hear it.
So what I'd say, and I practice to do like the copy. I usually do 1 DIC, 1 PAS, and 1 HSO every day. And what I do to every single one is I always go back and look at the value equation. Because you got to look at what's in it for the customer.
All right, that's a good thing. I agree with that. If you go back and look at your copy through the lens of the value equation, the dream outcome, likelihood of achievement, time to result, effort and sacrifice. If you think about that and think if it's answering what's in it for me, for the customer's question, what's in it for me, then yeah, you do really well. That's cool. I agree with that. Anthony, you're correct. That is the correct answer. Big G knowledge right there. I like it. Do you have anything else you want to add to this, Anthony? Any other insights you want to share?
Oh yeah, I would like to say that don't, like you said, don't really make up anything. What I used to do whenever I was a beginner was, instead of like, and I know you said like whenever you said do the practices, you always said go look at what this is and do your research on this one. What I did was to challenge myself I'd go look for like a product out in the open, like random products. I go look for it and then I make my own copy for that.
Yeah, I recommend that for all the beginners. That's a great way to do it. That's good advice. Guys, listen to Anthony. He knows what he's talking about. It's good stuff.
But yeah, that's all I had to add to it. Like, go look for stuff that you got things with. Like, say, if you wanted to do one on a phone that you got, write a copy for your phone, write a copy for your shoes. Like, try to sell stuff that you got, because it's real world stuff. It's not just something that you're making up in your head, not a fake situation. Like, try to make it sell to yourself. That's what I do.
Thank you, Anthony.
Of course.
No, he's got it. It's all good.
That's really good knowledge. Thanks, buddy.
All right, guys, we're gonna move on. We're going to the next question. So Bradley, we're gonna answer Bradley's question. We're gonna answer Noah's question, and then we're gonna move on to the next piece of copy. So, my good friend Bradley, what do you got? What's your question or comment?
What's going on? Can you hear me?
I can't hear you. Yeah.
Brilliant. Right. So at the top of the copy, he says what he wasn't doing. Yeah. It says here, look, he wasn't doing something.
Yeah, I wasn't optimizing.
Yeah, I wasn't
this.
optimizing my render engine. Yeah, so I did something similar in my DIC, and someone had reviewed my copy and said it was monotonous. Now, I did do 4 of them, so I just want to know, does it get to a point where that would get monotonous?
It can. It depends on what you're not saying. If you do 4 not statements and they're intriguing not statements, you're totally fine, right? You could write 4 monotonous not statements, and yes, now it's monotonous. Using a not statement or not using a not statement isn't gonna make it monotonous. It's what you actually put in there, right? If you say the same thing over and over again, then it's gonna be monotonous. But you can do 4 or 5 even if they're mind bending enough. And the thing with the not statements are, you're kind of finding whatever their best guess is about what you're actually doing, and you're saying nope, not that, nope, not that. So you're breaking their brain a little bit, because their brain thinks it's one thing and you're telling them it's not that, and they're like, oh well, it must be this thing, and you're like, nope, not that either. And then they're like, well, I don't know what this is. Everything I think it is, it's actually not, right? That's what you're trying to accomplish with the not statement. So as long as you're sort of breaking their brain every time, it doesn't matter. You can do 4 or 5, no issue.
Yeah. Well, look, I didn't do not. I said that there's a reason why 4 times. So it was like,
Again,
I'll give an example.
It depends on what you're, yeah, go ahead, give me your,
I said, so it was about the millionaire routines. That was at the DIC. And I said, there's a reason why you wake up tired and millionaires don't. And it was a carry on of why millionaires have a better morning routine and you don't.
yeah, you would have to, I would recommend you'd have to use vivid imagery. You'd have to use intriguing, counterintuitive ideas. If you do that 4, 5, 6 times and you're just listing slightly new details about a millionaire's life versus theirs, it's not gonna be engaging. It's got to be big, vivid, intriguing, counterintuitive.
Okay.
I'd probably make
All right,
1 or 2
cheers.
comparisons at the most. Yeah. Good question.
Okay.
Okay,
thanks.
let's do Noah's and let's move on. So Noah, what's your question?
Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you.
Awesome. So when we're looking at perspective, specifically as it's like, okay, an I statement. So I'm making it personal versus I'm removing myself from the situation and saying, you were in this situation. I was never here, but I know how to fix it. What's the benefit, if there is any, of either one of those over another?
Yeah, so basically you're asking like what's the pros and cons of using I, you, we, them, they, us, that kind of stuff, right?
Right? Yeah.
So you statements are powerful because you're talking to that person, right? That's going to have the highest impact on them, right? I statements are going to give them the chance to detach and live vicariously through you, right? They statements will externalize what you're talking about to some other person, right? We statements bringing everybody together, right? It's like, oh, we're one big happy family, right? Those are the kind of different effects, right? Now you might want to do those different effects for different reasons, right? You might want to externalize something bad and internalize something good by talking specifically to you. You might want to let them detach by talking about I or he or some other person going through something so that they can, experience the emotions kind of subconsciously instead of like directly, or like secondarily instead of directly. But each of them create different effects in the mind of the reader and can be used in different parts of the copy, but it's so much and you can use it in different places. That answer your question?
Yeah, that was actually, very well. So as it specifically relates to this piece of copy, we look at something like, I wasn't optimizing my render engine, I wasn't removing the nodes, I was having this issue.
Yeah.
You'd say that fits well, and it allows them to live vicariously through you to relate to the issue more effectively.
Yeah, he's teasing something that he's done. It's still related to them. It's still something that's relevant to them, something that they might do or would be doing themselves as well. It's just they're getting to do it, vicariously through the story, right? Yeah, this is an appropriate use of the right pronouns here, which is funny, like pronoun use. We're not talking about PC pronoun use. We're talking about like advanced persuasion pronoun use. But yes, that's the correct use of the right pronouns here.
Oh yeah. Well, all right. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Cool. All right, we're gonna move on to the next piece of copy. So if you got your hand up, put it down. We will we'll get to your questions at the end. So Mr. Jacob West, are you on the call? I think you were the one that said you weren't be able to make on the call. No, you're here. Jacob,
No,
are you
I'm
here?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you, man.
Sweet.
Dude, tell me about your avatar. You've got a name for him and an age for him. That's cool. Tell me about Cameron.
Cameron, 22, kind of like, out of high school, in the workforce for like 1 or 2 years, aspiring artist, getting tired of the 9-to-5 gig, trying to make something happen. For the pain.
He watched the Shia LaBeouf gift, like don't let your dreams be dreams. So he's in it. He's like, no, I'm gonna make him real.
Yeah, he's
That
like,
guy.
fuck this. I'm trying to make it on SoundCloud,
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that's him. I kind of went hard on the avatar. I don't know how much time I'm supposed to spend on those. I had like 2 pages full, so I don't know if I need all that information.
Oh, you're good. So tell me, what's his dream state and what problems are keeping him from getting there?
Dream state, want to be rich, performing artist, have a money counter like Future. Got all the hoes. I'm trying to make it in the music game, but independently because record labels are a scam now. So trying to start it from the ground up kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. And I guess the reason why I can't is, well, can't find quality beats. You're not going to sound professional if you don't have quality beats. Spending too much time looking for beats.
Why
searching
can't
on
you find
YouTube.
quality beats?
Because they all sound the same. It's kind of oversaturated market right now. If they're looking on like suggested tabs on YouTube, it's just like trap beat, rinky dink trap beat, you know, this and that. So can't find quality because it's people are making the same thing. So this is basically for like a free value email for a beat maker that has a lot of beats on their store that are different.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the cool secret reason why this guy's good is because this particular creator has beats that are actually unique and actually better because he's just simply better than everyone else, or what makes this guy's beats not crap or bland or whatever.
Yeah. Top tier, has different moods, different genres. I like in the beat realm, they do type beats like Future type beats, Drake type beats, Kendrick type beats. You know, he's got all of those kinds of beats, so he's got variety as well as quality.
Got it. Okay. Cool. So let's take a look at your copy and see how it plays out. I think you might run into some issues just because it is a difficult thing to sell. It's hard to set yourself apart in this unless you've got some sort of really cool secret separation method, right? So let's talk about this. So is this your subject line right here at the beginning? The "Are you tired of not having the time"?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh well, no, that was
1 second. Go ahead. You can unmute yourself again. There was someone talking in the background. So
you're good.
Yeah.
So I didn't even have a subject. I had some written down.
Okay.
I forgot to put a subject line. That was my fault. So
okay, so you don't have a subject line. You typically need those in an email, right? So if this was your subject line, it was a little bit too long. I see here you use the "what if I told you" line. You use the Morpheus line. Do you know about the Morpheus line and its problems?
I know of the Morpheus line, but not its problems. What are they?
Okay, so this is the classic meme, right, from the Matrix. What if I told you? Blah 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 blah, right? This has been used so many times by salesy people to transition from describing someone's pain and suffering to talk about the problem that it immediately triggers sales guard. This has become like a sales cliche, right? If you want to sound really salesy, use the "what if I told you" line, right? So I have this concept that I call sales guard, right? So when someone's reading or consuming material and all of a sudden they discover that their guy's got an agenda, he's trying to like sell them a product like too soon maybe, or something that's not relevant to them. They're trying to treat, like I call it sales guard, right? Like they raise their hands up to protect themselves. They're like, no, I will not be sold to, right? And especially if it comes here at like the second line or the preview text line or the second line after you've opened the email, you're going to start running some problems, right? I recommend you don't use the Morpheus line if possible. So
gotcha.
Let's ignore your fake subject line and let's just start right here at the first part then, and start talking about this first line. So why spend time looking through YouTube for every kind of type beat imaginable when you could go to one place? Now this is a little odd to me, right? Because typically you want to talk to them about their pain and their at least you want to talk to them about their situation or what they want and their problems with getting it before you start presenting a solution for those things, right? Right now, you've asked them a question when you could go to one place. This is like assuming that they actually know that there is a place to go, right? And I don't think, at least in the way you've explained it to me so far, they're at a stage now where they don't really know that there's one place they can go to find good stuff. Like that's actually the problem, is they don't know where to go. They think this is like going to YouTube is the best place they could go, right? So when you've asked this question, it's you've introduced the solution too soon, but it's already like assuming that they know what the solution is. And I don't think that's going to put the reader in a strange place where they're like, well, bro, I don't know where that one place is. Like I would if I could, but I don't. And why does this guy assume that I already do? Right. I would recommend that you don't mention the actual solution until you had time to kind of flesh out their current pain, right? And why it's a problem. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I know you think that searching endlessly through suggested tabs on YouTube will finally stumble across that top tier quality beat. like the grammar on this is a little messed up. This has an edge of insult to it, right? This is like, why are you so stupid for just scrolling through YouTube endlessly, right?
Yeah.
And you've got to be really careful, especially with creatives, to not stomp on their ego and call them stupid, right? If you call someone stupid right out of the bat, it doesn't always work well unless you've got the kind of clout and surrounding things you need to actually make it work, right? So I'd recommend you don't do this. I probably wouldn't accuse them of being stupid for thinking this. I'd be like, hey, I know you've probably spent hours searching through YouTube looking for that perfect beat. You know it's just out there. Maybe it's on the next result page. And then you ask the question, why haven't you found it yet? If that's true, why haven't you found it yet? Right. Then you're kind of like, you're being the nice friend. You're being Morpheus is actually like red pilling them to the world instead of the guy who's telling them that they're stupid because they're not unplugged yet. Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. There's a difference here. It's a subtle difference. And I think it kind of shines through. I do like the use of this question. Why haven't you yet? This is like kind of like that paradoxical question idea we were talking about on the expert call we did a couple of days ago, where the question, why haven't you yet? Or if that's true, why haven't you found it yet? Or why is it so hard to find them? You force them to address the fact that there's a problem, right? This is like an intervention question. Like it's awakened you to the real situation that's going on here, right? I like that you've done this. And I think especially if you kind of fine tune this previous line, it would definitely sink a little bit better. But I think this is a good start. Because it prompts them for shifting their beliefs. Now you're gonna start telling them, hey, there is a better place. You can go to find it. There's actually a solution to finding your better beats, right? It's because they all sound the same. Why not sit in one spot where you know you can discover gold, all the moods, all the variety, all the quality. If you think the spot is not for you, that's fine. So this is kind of weird. It's like you're trying to defend this spot, or you're trying to, it's slightly confrontational right at the beginning when they don't even know what the spot is, right? You're asking them to like commit to marriage before even meeting the person on the date, right? Like, it's like, you're like, stop right now. Like, if you don't think this is for you, then you're then that's fine. But like this, and it's like, dude, I don't even know what this is, man. How do I know if it's for me or not, right? I can't make an informed decision until I've actually seen what we're talking about here. So, again, I think this kind of line might make sense on like the end of the sales page or something like that, but too early where they don't actually know what the solution is or why it's special. It's a little early to be like line in the sand. If you don't think this is for you, that's fine, right? Like, they don't even know what it is, right? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And this is something you see when you read it as a third party, right? Because when you sit there in there and you're writing this, I can see how this will start to make sense. And I think this is what like it flows like when you start writing like this. But if you take a few minutes, detach from your writing and come back and review it, and if you read it out loud, it makes it a little easier for you to spot these little disconnects where you're like, oh, that doesn't actually fit at the stage of the conversation, right? Like it's a weird thing for someone to say, right? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it'd be like picking a chick up for a date and you're like driving her somewhere and you're talking about where you grew up and you just turn to her like, wait, do you have herpes? Like that'd be like it'd just be like a weird thing to ask, right? Like it just doesn't make any sense, right? And then it would ruin it, and you sound like a crazy person, right? And that's kind of what's happening here, right? You're talking about something, and then you just like hit them with a question or a statement that's like not right for the situation, not right for the stage, and it just doesn't feel right. But you can usually catch that as a writer if you turn around and you read through this out loud 5-10 minutes after you've written it, after you've gone for a walk, done a few of your push-ups for the day, and you come back and read it. You can usually catch it. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Anyways, that's just something you catch when you read out loud. Let's keep going here. So you can keep spending your hard-earned time searching for beats while someone else is spending their time working on their craft and becoming better than you. I like this angle, right? So you've done an angle here where you're comparing them to some other version, some other person out there that they're competing with, because this is a highly competitive space. They all know they're competing for like that to be the best, right? Like it's a huge driver for your avatar, I believe. And I think that was a good angle. I think the sentence could be simplified, but I really like that you did this angle. You did the comparison thing. Can you tell me about your thought process around this? Like, how conscious were you of this angle? Was it something you noticed from your avatar? Just tell me why you put this line in here and how you came up with it.
I actually heard that from one of my favorite beat makers. His name was Beside You. He said he was like, whenever you're not working, somebody else is, and they're getting better than you. And I'm like, well, yeah, that definitely true. So I don't know, that line always stuck with me, so I just decided to place it in there.
That's good, right? We as copywriters, like, what is that famous line? Like, good artists create, great artists steal, or something like that. Like, if you know something, you find like some phrase or some angle that's motivating to you, and you know it's going to match your avatar, use it, right? If you find some, I hear breaking out copy in the wild, and you see some mental shift that someone makes, like, reword it and make it yours, man. Like, definitely, like, don't copy and paste, don't plagiarize, but you can take an idea out there and synthesize it as your own and reintroduce it to your audience. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. I think you did a good job doing that here. That was a good move to make. And then your CTA is hurry up and acquire some beats now so you can start writing. I'd probably try to still build some curiosity around, because you're trying to like sell the beat, like, hey, go acquire some beats. I'd probably say, hey, go check them out. Go look at these beats and like see if they'd work in the project you're working on, or before you start your next whatever, take a look at these beats and see if they'd help, or or if they'd fit. Like, you want to get them curious, have a question in their mind about what these beats might be like, or just to see if they're as good as you claim they are. So they can only answer that question if they go click the link, right? And that's an important thing to understand with CTAs, right? There needs to be an unanswered question in their mind that they can only answer if they click the link, right? There has to be some low-grade anxiety that they feel. And the only way to take it away is by to resolve or put that anxiety or curiosity to rest is by clicking the link and finding out for themselves. And you have to consciously create that anxiety. You have to consciously create that curiosity in their mind right there, the line, by introducing or incepting these unanswered questions. And essentially that's what intrigue and curiosity is, because you're incepting questions for them to not have the answer to, then you can then provide the answer to, right? You're creating a market for your own information. It can be sinister if you use it for evil, but it's extremely fantastic for helping people make changes and do what they're supposed to do. So does that make sense? Does that idea about how to shift the CTA, does that click with you?
Definitely. It's just more, dangling curiosity in front of them.
Oh yeah. Dude, curiosity is one of the most powerful agents you have, one of the most powerful tools you have as an agent of change in the world, right? The more curiosity and mystery you can attach to the product, solution, and opportunity that you're presenting, the more likely they are to take action on it and move forward, right? And obviously, as copywriters, we're here to make money. We're here to help our clients make money. But ultimately, we do that by providing insane value, by helping people change their lives and make better decisions, right? And so ultimately, you have to be really good at that. And a lot of that has to do with curiosity and mystery. So I think that's a good thing to keep in mind as you move forward with CTAs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So tell me, do you have any other questions for me? Like, this is a good email. We got to talk about some good things here. What questions do you have for me right now about this?
One, like, well, I noticed I pressed the pain buttons, I think, the wrong way. So do you have any tips on like just for this one specifically, what pain buttons would you press, do you think?
So you could still press the same pain buttons here, but as far as like the time wasted, people getting better than you while you're working hard, like, you can still press all of those same buttons. Those are fine.
Yeah.
It's less about the pain buttons you pressed and more about the times when you stomped on their ego, right?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this thing when you could do this other thing? Well, they don't know what that is. You're setting them up for failure for that question, right? I know you think that you're doing this is going to work, but it's not, right? It's more about like the times you're stomping on their ego instead of resonating with their pain. So what you're trying to do here is you're trying to talk about their pain in a way that demonstrates that you know their pain, you understand it. And you might even do a few things to amplify, to make them feel it again and make them feel it a little bit more, but you never, I don't like stomping on someone's ego in most of these types of products like this, right? There's a difference between a guy trying to sell beats and Andrew Tate trying to wake up young men, right? Like, he can kind of come in and stomp on people's ego because he is who he is, and it's a way to wake people like you and myself up, right? Because we have to like actually say, oh, you know what? He's actually right. He's better this, that, this, and okay, yeah, I better listen to this man, right? Whereas when you're selling beats, you're not trying to do the same thing. It's not the same. It's not the same awakening process. I mean, you're trying to sell something. It's a completely different situation. You want to resonate with their pain, resonate with what they're going through, and provide them with a solution instead of stomping on their ego. That's not going to get you where you want to go.
Yeah.
With this type of endeavor. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all the questions I have.
Cool. Good questions.
Sweet.
Let's go ahead. I'm going to open up for questions about this copy and the concept we've talked about here. Let's go ahead with Stanley. What's your question, my friend? Stanley Agba.
Okay, I can't hear you.
What's up?
Andrew.
I can't hear your question. Are you asking something?
Yeah, please, how do you drive desire and curiosity, like when trying to provide the solution?
Man, that is so garbled. I can't hear what you're saying. Can you either type it in the chat or ask it again?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Oh yeah, it's much better.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. What do you got? What's your question? Oh, Stanley, I can't hear you anymore. What's up, Stanley? What's your question? All right, Stanley, we're gonna come back to you and we're gonna let you try and figure out your stuff. We're gonna move on. Leif, what do you got? What's your question?
Hello, Andrew, can you hear me?
I can. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to thank you, especially before I ask the question. Like, you sort of changed my life. Obviously, I'm 14. I don't really understand how the world works, and especially after joining your course, you've changed my life and how the way I look at the world. So thank you for that, my friend.
Oh, appreciate it. What?
I
That's
just
helpful. What's
want
your
to
question?
ask. Yeah, so I just want to ask Jacob really quickly before I make my statement. Is this a concept email, or is this for a client?
Yeah, so this would be something I send to a client for free value, what they would send to their
Yeah.
customers on their email list.
So I'm just an intermediate, so I don't know much about your client. But what I would ask them, going back to the beginner lessons, is that when people buy stuff, they like to look at an authority. So if I were in your shoes, my friend, I would sort of look at if they have any person who's using their product as like an authority figure. So like, for example, if I have a client who's selling toothpaste, I would say, customer, hello, you deserve this Hollywood smile. So the Hollywood smile is something that people look at. So if I were you, I would see if they have like an authority figure that people can look up to. That's just my opinion. I don't know much, but take that with a grain of salt.
No, that was awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good point. If you can instill authority and credibility through waving around the right names, then by all means do it. Yeah, that's good advice. All right, let's do two more. Let's do Mr. Furkan and Jonah. We'll answer your two questions, then we'll move on. So, Mr. Furkan, what do you got for me, my friend?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, what's your question?
So the avatar Jacob chose is very much like me, so I can relate to that. And my question is, when we do research, should we consume the product or whatever we are promoting, or will it be a waste of time?
If you can, I recommend you do so, right? So when you land a client, you want them to give you access to the products that you're going to be selling. It will help you get a better feel for how to promote it, if possible. You don't necessarily have to consume it, but if you can, by all means do so. It can be very helpful.
And after we consume the product, for example, should we still check for other consumers' opinions, or would it be enough?
Of course, right? Like if you think you're the ideal avatar, you can still rock with it, but it's usually good to get at least confirmed that it works across other ideal customers as well.
Okay, thank
you. All right, Jonah, what's your question?
Hello.
1 second. I'm gonna go ahead and mute everybody real quick. Let's go back through this, Mr. Furkan. What's your question? All right, you're still muted. Stanley, did you ever figure out your audio? Are you there? Mr. Stanley Agba.
Yeah, I'm here.
I can hear you now. What's your question?
Okay, this has to do with the second copy. You said something about the introduction to the second copy being passive. So how do you start the introduction to command the audience attention?
You immediately start with a statement that is about either an opportunity or a threat to them. And I gave an example in the document. So when I upload this in an hour or so after this call is done, go take a look at the comment that I made in there, and you'll be able to see how I showed you the better way to do what he was trying to do. Make sense?
All right, thank you.
All right. Mr. Furkan, did you get your audio fixed? Are you there?
I already asked. No problem.
Oh, that's right. You did. Jonah was the one we were worried about. Jonah, did you get your audio fixed?
Yeah. Hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. What's your question?
Thanks. I noticed something when in the last email, the guy was talking about the avatar, and just correct me if I'm wrong here, but I have an opinion, right? I feel like after reviewing a whole bunch of people's copy and hearing a lot of people's copy and stuff, I feel like a lot of people are writing copy targeted to people trying to escape the matrix in a way, and I think that's most likely because that's like we're here trying to essentially escape the matrix, and that's the mindset we're in and we're enjoying it. But like, I feel like we're targeting majority of people in the world are in the 9 to 5 mindset and not in that escape the matrix mindset.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's not really resonating with them. Am I making sense?
So you bring up an important point. Yeah. So I do see that a lot of times with beginners, they assume that everybody in the world is like them. Most people in the world are not like you, right? They might have some of the same desires, but they're gonna miss on a few key value statements about how the world works, right? You need to make sure that you are picking an avatar that is real, if you can, that's based on an existing customer, an existing real person. And 9 times out of 10, they're not someone that's trying to escape the matrix, as you say. They're just like some average sheep, right? They're plugged in. They're still in the matrix, and you're gonna keep helping them achieve what they're trying to achieve inside the matrix, right? Not try to unplug them. To continue with the metaphor, and I agree with that point. I think that's a good one to bring up. I'm glad you did.
Thanks. Yeah, no, like even in this last one, I'm not saying like it's bad or anything. I think it's still a great email, but when you said the person like with music, is trying to, you're sick of the 9 to 5 and whatever, I think you could maybe just, I don't know exactly how.
That's
but
actually
just be
true
better
though
targeted
for this
towards-
avatar, like that. For this avatar, that's definitely true. There's definitely a hustler culture around that type of musician stuff. So there's obviously going to be some overlap, but I think in this last case he was probably fine. In that point, there's been some other copy, and I know kind of what you're talking about, where they've definitely crossed that line for sure.
All right, great. I'm just glad I'm on the same page. Cool. Thanks, man.
All right, let's move on to the next piece of copy. Charles, Mr. Spillman. This is the guy who said he couldn't be on the call. Did you somehow magically make it on the call? Nope. All right, well, let's go through this pretty quickly then. So here's a PAS email. Guy's avatar is Elliot. He's 32 years old. Financial situation, 40 to 50K. Current situation is he's hardly ever recognized for his work. Sees other people win big, but he thinks he deserves it more. Doesn't feel very valuable. Unsure how to become the best, et cetera, right? Copes with being average by telling himself they won big because X, Y, Z. Dream situation is being able to pursue creative work in an instant. Elliot wants to be the one everyone envies, be able to look underneath the superficial and find the real truth/answer, become more valuable and make more money doing the thing he loves. This is actually pretty good stuff. Like these are solid answers, right? Like he's done a pretty good job here. So let's look at the problem that he's facing. Elliot believes luck is a bigger part of creativity than it really is. That's a very clear problem, right? Like we need to shift that belief, and we need to give him the tools to make luck happen predictably, right? Solid stuff. Solid question. So let's take a look at the actual copy and get this taken care of. So if you guys had your hands raised from the last copy, go ahead and lower them now. So you guys can raise your hands again when we get done with this one. So let's take a look at the subject line. Why waiting for brilliant ideas is foolish. Now that's a good disrupt. I would probably tie that with and what to do instead of it as a preview text. So if this is the subject line, the preview text I would suggest he uses and what to do instead, because that kind of gives them that drop of hope. Now you get the full effect of the fascination. So but again, this is a solid subject line, especially if you enhance like I suggested. So most people, even the creative types, don't understand the number one ingredient of a brilliant idea. This is a fairly disruptive first line. It's about something they care about, and it's also, if you pay attention, he's said that his avatar thinks he's smarter than other people, right? So he's created a riddle here, or an opportunity for that avatar to engage by proving to themselves that they either know this answer or finding out the answer that will make them better than everyone else, right? This is an intelligent move. It's intelligent first time. Instead, the phrase, he got lucky, gets thrown about the office by jealous colleagues. The fact is, Mr. Lucky had a massive head start from the very beginning. So there's an important point here. This is a point of contrast. So you have a statement where you're talking about how people think. They think that it's all about luck, but you're going to say, but it's not luck. It's this other thing, right? And he says, the fact is ... You want to use the correct grammar to, you got to use the correct grammar here to to highlight that contrast, to highlight that that conflict that we're making here. So instead of saying the fact is, it's better to say, but the fact is. That preps the reader to know that, oh, he's about to offer some sort of contradictory or counterintuitive but interesting alternative take to this, right? It's going to be way more interesting. So that's an important thing. You want to guide the reader along with your grammar to help them consume the copy and consume the ideas in the most effective way possible. If you're going to use contrast and conflict, which I recommend you do because it helps people keep attention, you want to highlight it with the grammar here so they get really excited about it. So let's take a look at this. So Mr. Lucky had a massive head start from the very beginning. He took Abraham Lincoln's famous quote to heart. I suggest you do the same. If you give me 4 hours to chop down a cherry tree, I'll use the first 3 hours sharpening my axe. This is a good quote. I'm a personal fan of this quote, but I recommend that when you do quotes, you format them differently than the rest of the text. Again, italics is probably a good idea, but if you have, it makes it easier for the person to read it and easier for them to distinguish that, hey, someone else is talking here, not the writer, but Abraham Lincoln is actually the one talking. It's just a helpful thing to help the consumer better. All right, so which means you need to truly focus on the work that's in front of you. Now, this is kind of a leap from what he's talking about, because this is talking about preparation, and then he immediately starts talking about focus. So there's a disconnect in the thread here, which I'm not a huge fan of, but there's another issue I want to talk about. You need to connect this revelation, this new belief about how the world is supposed to work, with the big dream that they want to have, right? So you could say something like, which means if you want to come up with creative ideas predictably and reliably, you need to truly ... focus on the work, or you need to blah, blah, prepare ahead of time, or whatever, right? You want to connect. It's like the so you can thing. If you're going to give a valuable piece of information or perspective shift, you need to connect to their dream state so you can come up with creative ideas over and over again, right? You need to connect to something more important, or else it's just a statement. You want to be a statement about something they care about. So you can is an important question to ask yourself, or like a little phrase to try and tack onto this. Let's move on. You need to focus on the work that's in front of you, get to the root of the issue, then you can create a brilliant idea that crushes the rest. But applying genuine focus is easier said than done. In fact, there's a new tool that solves a problem with flying colors. Forbes magazine calls it innovation in a bottle. It's a healthy, biologically available supplement that naturally boosts your cognition. So you see there's a real problem with the thread here where he's trying to connect the idea of this Abraham Lincoln thing with focusing and preparing and this new supplement that makes it easy to think. There's too many ideas that he's trying to connect sequentially when really he can connect it with one single line, right? If you make this part simple, and this comes from a simple understanding of the problem that you're solving and the solution and how it solves that problem, this is an important step here, right? If you don't get the thread connected correctly and you try and instill, like you try and go 4 or 5 hops when you really only need to go 1 hop, it gets confusing for the mind and the reader doesn't want to stick around. But let's talk about this next part here. So it's a healthy, biological, available supplement. He's kind of given away the answer. He tells them what the answer is, right? We know what it is. It's a supplement. There's no more curiosity in the reader's mind. There's no more special thing about a supplement that's been teased. He just tells you that there's this cool supplement that boosts your cognition, right? You want to add a dash of mystery, add a dash of intrigue, right? If you don't add intrigue, if you don't add curiosity, there's no reason for them to click. They already know what it is. They're like, you got to give them some type of mystery to continue engaging with this copy, right? And again, he says boost your cognition. Again, you need to connect that to the dream state, or back to the thing you reveal, like so you can boom, boom, boom. So you can come up with better ideas predictably, so that you can prepare before you sit down for that big meeting and you can show everyone how creative you are, right? You need to always connect the ideas and keep the thread going. Click here, start being recognized for your hard work. Again, I'd probably go for the curiosity angle. This lends itself really well to DIC. I'd tease some things about a supplement and give them a way to click to get their stuff taken care of, right? Yeah. So I think the biggest issues with this email is the lack of connecting, right? Like, so there's a grammar issue here where they're not really connecting it. They're not connecting these ideas here at the bottom. But other than that, like, there's some good elements here. The subject line is fairly okay. He seems to understand the avatar play to him. That first line is pretty good. But everything else, I think we've kind of identified some of the reasons we can improve this. So let's take a look at, let's go ahead and go through what questions you guys have about this guy's copy, because he's not here. So we're going to take some time to answer his questions, and then we're going to move on to the next piece of copy. Is that? No, we got one more. All right. Easton, what do you got? What's your question?
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
I can, yeah. What's your question?
Yeah, I was wondering, you see the way when you told Spellman to highlight the quote in italics,
Yeah.
right? And you see the last email where it said discover your goal. So I was just wondering, if you were gonna write a similar email like that, would you like highlight so let's just say I'm gonna write an email that has the word gold. Can I highlight it in like gold coloring to make it stand out?
You can, right? So your question is about like what type of formatting is good and what type is bad, right? Over formatting, if you go too crazy with bolds and italics and capitalizations and stuff like that, it loses its effect, right? A good example of this to kind of keep this in mind, like italics are for emphasis, right? Just like swearing is for emphasis, right? We all know people who swear every other word, right? They're like every other word is a swear word, right? It loses all power, right? It doesn't emphasize anything, right? But if you know the guy who reserves it for the right occasion, right? Maybe every 5 minutes, he might drop a swear word for emphasis. It actually has the effect, right? The same thing goes with bolding and italicizing your text. If you do it every single line and every single thing, then it doesn't emphasize anything, right? You do it selectively, right? Highlighting a word in gold might be perceived as tacky, depending on your avatar, depending on your niche, right? It really depends, right? So I can't tell you, yes, do this, yes, don't do that. Like think about your niche. Would it be perceived as professional and intriguing and interesting, or would it be perceived as tacky? Answer the question and act accordingly. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. So would you say, because I've used different colors in my well, I didn't use it like let me think. So would you say
different color text is usually a bad idea?
Yeah. All right. So
every so often you can do red on like a landing page. Like landing page is different, but in like an email, different color text usually looks like a weird person. Usually.
All right. Yeah. So yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's everything. Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. Good question. All right, Laith, you're quick with that raise your hand action. What's your question?
Yeah. Can you hear me all right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So for the second line, I really like the way that he perceived it. So I remember from our good buddy Steve, he was perceived as less, and he was laughed at by his parents and by his friends. So especially in the office and with colleagues, you always want to one-up them. You always want to get that promotion. So I really like what he did there. One comment that I would have is that the way I see it is that I wish he would have used more words that are like touche, if you get what I mean. So if you're listing something that can boost your focus and boost your work and boost your
you mean make it a little more personal, a little more lighthearted. So that really depends on the avatar, and that really depends on the voice of the thing.
And that's true.
Hey, Laith, real quick. So moving forward, I'd really rather we spend this time asking questions instead of just providing insights onto the stuff, right? Like everyone's getting insights, but like I like to keep this little time after each email for questions for people who are trying to figure something out. Instead of just people who want to like obviously share stuff. Like that being said, if you have some interesting comments, like definitely fill them in, but I want to make sure that this is consistent about people asking questions. So let's go ahead and move on to Ruben. Let's have Ruben ask his question and see what he's got.
Hello.
I can hear you, Ruben. What's your question?
All right. So my question was about earlier you were talking about testimonials. So should we always try to add a testimonial into our copy, or?
No, you can when it's helpful, right? You can use it when you're trying to back up a claim, or when you are trying to illustrate maybe a dream state or a pain state in the words of a customer explicitly, but you don't always have to include them. It's a tool that you include when needed, right? It's not something you always have to have. We have all these different ideas, these different angles, different ways of doing things that are like a bunch of tools in a tool shop, right? You don't always use every tool on every project. You only go and grab the ones you actually need. Is that, you see the difference, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one more question about
Sure.
So when you're writing copy, what are your thoughts on bolding words and underlining words?
I just answered this like 10 seconds ago. Yeah. You're good. Okay, go back and watch the recording on that one. The replay. All right, let's do Igor and do Kareem, and then we're gonna move on to the next piece of copy. What do you got, Igor?
Hi, yeah. So I wanted to ask, so you said here we have a good subject line. So, and it's like kind of a question that implies that, yeah, why waiting for brilliant ideas is foolish. So it implies kind of the explanation follows in the email.
Yeah.
But what do you think about like, on the contrary, like about a subject line that is just like a statement? For example, here it would be just without why, like just a statement like waiting for brilliant ideas is foolish. Is such a subject line like a good idea, or like, is it okay?
So the
What do you
word
think?
why is what powers that implication you just talked about, right? Unless you explicitly state, and here's what to do instead. There is no implication of like hope for the person. It's just a statement, like it's just a Debbie Downer statement. Waiting for brilliant ideas is foolish, right? Boom, period. When you say why waiting for brilliant ideas is foolish, you're teasing the idea that you're going to reveal the real way that brilliant ideas are created, right? So the why is extremely powerful. You can still do statements, but you have to make sure that there's something in there that instills some hope, right? If you're just saying negative things without providing the little like insinuation that there's something positive and wonderful on the other side, then it's not going to create the same level of curiosity than if you add hope.
No, really, I just asked because I think like, yeah, it's not implicating any explanation, but like I would say it's like fairly unusual to see something like this in the inbox. So I kind of thought you can bet on this.
It might be unusual, but it needs even if it's unusual and grabs attention, that doesn't mean they'll open it, right? You could have like 40 eggplant emojis for your subject line, and people be like, "Oh, that's unusual. I never see that in the inbox before," but they wouldn't want to open it. You know what I'm saying, right? Like same thing, right? As long as if you're teasing something valuable, sure, be as disruptive and try different formats as possible, but you've got to give them a reason for wanting to open the email, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. Can I ask another question? I just wanted to hear like your thoughts. I think for me, like it seems in this email, I think the ending part of it, it's like, for me personally, I feel like it's not very like strong. Like, I mean, not very emotional.
You mean the CTA, the last part of it?
Yeah, and maybe this like this line, like it's
because he stopped talking about, he didn't build a curiosity, missed that. The curiosity is an important element here, and he didn't tie it into a more vivid description of the dream state. Yeah, you're completely correct there.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So that's it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Kareem, what's your question?
Hey, Big G Andrew, how's it going?
I'm doing great.
Well, that's great to hear, man. By coincidence, my question is also relating to the subject line.
Okay.
The subject line itself, I feel like it is kind of vague as to I don't see a benefit as to how this is going to affect me. Like, what do you think the open rate would be like if you had to just predict it?
So open rates depend almost entirely on the list health. And it, like, I can't just say, like, even if you made the best subject line and it's to a list that you barely opted in like 10 years ago, you're not going to get much open rate, right? That, like, the point that you said, like, oh, it doesn't actually terribly imply some value for me is why I made a suggestion and what you can do instead, right? Because that implies that you're going to teach them how to create brilliant ideas, right? I agree with you, and that's why I added that suggestion, right? That makes it more effective. So all right, I'm not going to predict open rates, right? Like this combination, what I suggest would probably have a fairly high open rate for that list.
All right, definitely with you. Can I ask an additional question, please?
Just ask the question.
All right. So if you were going to change it, would you make it more specific? Is that like the ideal course of action?
I gave what I would change as a solution there. I would tack on in the preview text and what to do instead, because it directly teases how to create a brilliant idea, which is something they want. That's how I would do it.
All right. Thank you very much, Andrew. I appreciate it.
All right, cool. Hilltop, are you on the call still?
I'm here, buddy.
Hilltop. I'm gonna take a bathroom break. Do you want to keep answering people's questions while I'm gone?
Absolutely. We'll take it.
All right. Perfect. I'll be back.
Yeah, let's see what we got. Igor, what do you got?
Sorry, I just forgot to raise to lower hand.
No, no problem, man. Nico, what's up?
Yeah, hello. You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I just had a question on how to properly start an email. Like the first sentence you read, not the subject line, but the next. Should it be a statement or more like a question, or yeah?
So it can be anything. So just as long as you answer what's in it for me for the first 2 or 3 lines, because you have to keep in mind that we live in an attention economy, right? And if you don't grab the reader's attention immediately, they're going to bounce. So it can be in the form of a question. It can be in the form of a disruptive statement. So like you see here, he's done it pretty well. I mean, he, as Andrew spoke about, he tied into the avatar's identity pretty well, because I believe he described in his avatar description that these people think they know a lot. And then his first line here is, most people don't understand the #1 ingredient of brilliant ideas. So he's tapping into their identity on a deeper level, and that's a pretty good way of disrupting. So it's got to be something that makes him read the entire email. It's got to be like a bit controversial even, perhaps. So yeah, something like that. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Andre, what's up?
Hey man, it's kind of coming back to what Andrew said earlier about the Morpheus line, what if I told you, and that obviously raises the guard. Is there something better that you could use? So ties into this copy, because this guy obviously near the end, Andrew said he's kind of that thread, that building up, kind of teasing the solution. Could he have said something like, where was it? What if you could, for example? Does that still raise kind of that sales guard, or would that work?
Yeah, well, that's kind of similar, right? So what if you could, what if I told you? It's the what if part, right? That makes it kind of like the Morpheus line. So yeah, it's got to be like organic. Like maybe there's a way to, right? It largely depends on the context and the way the surrounding lines around the moment where you begin to bridge the gap, or like change the course of the email a bit. It depends on the surrounding lines as well, but there's a way to, for example, is like a pretty good alternative to the Morpheus line. So the what if part is what usually is the thing that hires people's sales guards, right? So that's one way of doing it.
Yeah,
but it sounds like Andrew's back, so
I'm back, and I just want to chime in on the what if part, right? So the reason that the Morpheus line sounds salesy and feels salesy is because the reader knows that you have the answer to that anyways, right? What if I told you this, right? They already know that you have that thing on the other side of that question, right? They already know. So that's why they're like, oh, this guy's got an agenda. He's trying to like force something on me. It like telegraphs the whole thing, right? Whereas if you say there is a way to do this thing, and because like let's just say your question is, let's actually go to the last Morpheus question that we saw in here, and we'll play it out, and you can tell me which one feels more salesy. I think it was this last email. Yeah. What if I told you that you would save time once and for all? Now, the last part's kind of weak. Sorry, man, but like it's kind of weak, right? That you could save time once and for all. So if you said there is a way for you to save time once and for all, or what if I told you there was a way to save time once and for all? Which one sells more salesy? The last one, the what if I told you, right? Yeah. If you just say there's a way for you to save time once and for all, like the once and for all thing sounds salesy as it is, right? But there's a way for you to save time with your blender thing or whatever, right? That actually goes down way easier than what if I told you, because the what if I told you, it just screams I have an agenda and it's not helping you. You know what I'm saying? Like that's it's not the what if part of it. It's the fact that you're teasing the answer, right? It's better just to make that statement that teases it anyways and go ahead. Yeah.
So would you say a statement is better than asking the question then? So like that there is a way.
Asking questions is fine. It's asking the question that they know that you have the answer to. Okay. In a way that's like leading them, like that's the problem. So, and for right now, the easiest way to do that is to not ask the question, what if I told you, or what if, just avoid those types of questions if possible when you're writing for now. That's the fastest and easiest way to do it. All right,
Thank you.
guys, let's move on to the I believe the last piece of copy for today, and then we get to our general Q&A, which is what everybody's here for. Let's see, Mr. Froylan. That's it's awfully close to Froylan. Mr. Froylan Zazuta, are you on the call? Mr. I Drizzle. No, this guy's not on the call, which is too bad, which is good. I really only have a little bit of feedback to give this guy. I think he's pretty early in the beginner sprints. So this is for anxious teens who want to be happy, how to stop being distraction free. His PS email, when he sent this in, it was all one big blob. Like it was just like all the sentences were put together. So it was like 5 or 6 super long sentences in one giant thing. It was pretty difficult to read. So that was my first feedback for him, is definitely split this out into separate lines, each idea on a separate line. But let's read his email. Let's go through it. There was no subject line either, so that's a big problem. You got to have a subject line. So let's read his email. So have you ever felt lost at times, anxious, or even stressed about something that's not even happened? Maybe even signs of depression or absolutely no motivation to do anything positive for yourself, scrolling through TikTok mindlessly while others are out making money and enjoying every second of their life. Well, I'm here to tell you that you, my friend, are no different than half the population of where you live. In order to get out of the sick state, you must be different and see how successful you will become. Differentiating yourself among others starts here. Click this link to be sent to a world where the weirdos and the hard workers both intertwine to create a new way of living, not only for themselves, but for the benefit it will have on their family and friends. And only you can make that change for yourself. So yeah, Mr. Froylan, are you on the call? Like, are you on the call still? Because that'd be great. I really have questions for you. Questions? Are you there, Mr. I Drizzle? You're not there. Okay. So I have questions for him because I'm kind of confused about what he's offering. I have some questions. I have some questions about how this works, right? I don't know what this weird world where hard workers and weirdos get together and work. I don't know. I don't think that exists personally. But I'm curious what he's talking about. But let's talk about some of the feedback I have for this guy. So the first part is this first line is, this is a really bland question. And it's a little too long for just a regular old bland question. Have you ever felt lost at times, anxious, or even stressed out about something that has not even happened, right? This is a question where he's trying to resonate with their pain, but he's doing it in a very, very bland, empty way. He needs a more engaging, a more direct question. I've got a lot of questions for him about what this product actually does and what it actually helps and how it helps. But before I give a specific example of how we could do this with this line, but this is extremely bland. You want that first line to grab their attention by like the lapels, like by their suit jacket, and not let go. Like they can't, it's got to be so big and bold and vivid and connected to them that they can't not keep reading. And this is so bland and lukewarm that it goes in one ear and out the other. Like it's not something that's going to connect. It's not going to connect with anybody. So it needs to be shorter, more powerful, and connect to something they really care about. So this next line here, this part right here where you're just scrolling through TikTok mindlessly while others are out making money and enjoying every second of their life. This is the first time he tries to amplify the pain, right? Like you're there feeling all sad and depressed and like just stuck on TikTok mindlessly while other people are out there enjoying every second of their life. Like this is the first time where he's tried to amplify the pain through status, like through taking a look at their problem through the lens of other people or comparing them to other people. That's a powerful way to amplify emotions. And I think that was a good move for him here, but it still wasn't as vivid as it could be, right? This could be more vivid. This could be more engaging by describing enjoying every second of their life is kind of vague. I would try and get more specific about what they're doing that's exciting, that they're jealous about. Scrolling through TikTok mindlessly is, I would try and attach a value judgment on that. Scrolling on TikTok mindlessly, like trapped in like your room scrolling on TikTok mindlessly, I would try and instill some other adjectives to add more emotion to the negativity of that feeling, to make it more powerful, right? Yeah. So, and the next part here, yeah, well, I'm here to tell you, that's another thing that triggers sales guard. I typically don't recommend you do that. Just delete that and go straight into it. If you just said, you, my friend, are no different than half the population where you live, that's better than I'm here to tell you that. Like, I'm here to tell you that screams salesy 9 times out of 10 too. I would delete that. This is kind of an odd line. Like, you are no different than half the population of where you live. Like, that's an that's an odd way to like instead of saying you're no different than half of everybody else, he's like half of the population of where you live, right? So it's an odd way to say it. Again, it's a complicated sentence structure. I would delete the entire thing or severely restructure it. So this is the part he's trying to amplify their emotions. Now he's trying to give them a solution for it, right? This is the solution part of the email. The solution he gives is in order to get out of the sick state, you must be different and see how successful you become. That doesn't make any sense, right? There's not enough concrete information, not enough specificity there for the human brain to latch onto, which is important, right? The human brain needs something specific to latch onto. You've amplified all this emotion. You've got them all worked up. They're all in pain about being a depressed little TikTok kid, worm. And now you tell them the solution is to be different. There's nothing for them to latch onto there, right? You need to give them something to latch onto, a specific belief or specific value, and then you position the solution, the actual product, as the way to act on that principle, right? So we're missing that. We're missing that, right? And that's a really big problem. And then he goes into some weird place about weirdos and hard workers both intertwine. I don't know what that is. That sounds a little sketchy to me. But yeah, again, if you was here, I'd ask some questions about it. Because we need to figure out what the product is and exactly how to position it. But you guys can see some of the issues, the problems he's made with his email. I'm talking about some ways that we can solve it. Let's open it up. Let's take some time. I'll answer 3 questions about this email, and then we're going to do a general Q&A. So if you've got questions about this email right here from our good friend Froilan, let's answer this question. And again, I'm not really judging him as a writer. Like, he's probably a brand new writer who's still learning a bunch of stuff. But like, obviously, the avatar he's writing to are what we would call worms, which is cool. Worms got to pay us money too. So Alexander, what's your question?
Hi, I got a question about the first line. Like, the question: have you ever felt lost at times, etc.? What is the way to rewrite it the more interesting way?
There's a lot of ways. I really don't understand his avatar. I don't know who his avatar is and exactly what their biggest pain really is. Before I answer that, I really want to know that. But I'm going to flip the question back on you. What would you do to make it more interesting?
I would focus on only one of those things and really like go deeper.
Correct. Pick one and go deeper on it.
And I got another question, actually.
Let's go to the next question.
In one of the previous emails, there was a part about Abraham Lincoln. It was like the authority of the email. Do we really need to specify the authority, or can we just place, for example, what politics use or what movie stars use?
Can you ask the question again in a different way?
Do we need a specific authority?
No, you don't. Authority is an element you can use. You almost always need it in your sales page at least, but it's sometimes something you can use in your short form to amplify certain things, right? Authority is an amplifier, right? Right. If you say the secret to making billions of dollars from the stock market versus Warren Buffett's secret to making billions of dollars in the stock market, the authority of Warren Buffett is an amplifier, right? So sometimes as you're writing emails, you want to amplify certain things like the legitimacy or the potency of a certain solution. And that's when you want to slap authority around. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and do we really need to know that Warren Buffett used the methods we mentioned, or?
Look, if you don't have authority to use, then you can't use it. And that's not a problem. You can get away without using it. I'm saying is if it's something you have available to you and it is something you can use to amplify your copy and the claims you're making.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. All right, let's go to the next question. Omar, what do you got?
Hey, do you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
This line where he says, while others are out making money and enjoying every second of their life, sounds counterintuitive, or it's okay if you are making money and enjoying every second of your life at the same time?
Yeah, there's a lot of ambiguity about what this person's actual problem is and what they're actually trying to achieve. And he's not here on the call to clarify that, but you're definitely right. There's a whole bunch of mismatch. We're talking about like mental health and sadness, depression, and TikTok. And then we're talking about making money with hard workers. It's a big jump. because the idea is like the thinking behind this wasn't clear and defined, and so the copy isn't clear and defined. So yes, you're correct, but he's not on the call. If he's on the call, we'd ask him, we'd figure it all out, but he's not here.
Okay, I have another question on the previous copy. The title was saying why waiting for brilliant ideas is foolish. Does this title have a degree of insult, or it's okay to say this that he thought is to wait for brilliant ideas?
So it's an insult, but it's not directed at the reader, right? It's directed externally, right? It's them, right? He doesn't say why you are foolish for thinking that ideas. Wait, let's go back and I'll reword it so you can get what I'm trying to say. So he's not say instead of saying why you're foolish for waiting for brilliant ideas, he doesn't say that. He says why waiting for brilliant ideas is foolish. It's externalized, it's out in the ether, but it's still relevant to them and it gives them enough room to maneuver their ego. There's no insult in there. There's no direct insult. For whoever's reading this, they could probably be like, oh, let's see why other people are so stupid for that. While secretly he's like, hopefully I'm not stupid for doing that. You see what I'm saying? It gives enough room to maneuver because it's not directed at the reader. Why you're foolish for waiting for brilliant ideas. He doesn't say that. He says why waiting for brilliant ideas is foolish, right? It's externalized. Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah. All right. My friend Mook Ahmed, what's your question?
Yeah, Andrew, I just looked for the general Q&A at the end, so can I just skip you up?
Yeah, we'll skip you for a second. Come back. Laith, you got a question about this copy?
No, I just knew that I was next for the Q&A.
All right. Well, in that case, we're just going to start doing Q&A stuff. We'll go back up to Mook and we'll go back down through everybody. So, Mook, what do you got for me, my friend? What's your question?
Yeah, so the question I had is, I think there's a lot of people in a similar situation to me where they can commit full time to Hustler's Uni for like at least a month. So like, what would you say is the best use of the time to like get a client because you can do this full time?
If you can do it full time, obviously you spend the first 7 days laying that foundation, right? You go through the beginner sprints, you lay that important foundation, you develop those skills. That's step number one, right? You can't do sales and client outreach if you don't have the skills to back it up, at least the understanding of how marketing works, right? So do that, spend those first 7 days entirely focused on doing the beginner sprints. And then the rest of your time, you go through the process I teach in intermediate sprints to rapidly test out your cold outreach method, right? Because so you'll be testing out which niches you're reaching out to, what subject lines you're using, what your email body is. And you'll be rapidly testing through that by a high volume of emails every day, like probably close to like anywhere between 40 to 100 per day for the rest of that month, which is an insane. That's a full day's work, like just insane sitting at your computer working nonstop. But if you go through and test at a high volume and you follow the process I teach and intelligently test, you'll be able to land your first clients within a month, right? But usually where that falls apart, most people don't take the time to actually do the insane level of work it takes to land a client. Because think about it, like a good client that you land the correct way, which is the way I teach you, is going to be worth anywhere from 50 to 250K a year if you do it right. You know what I'm saying? So you don't just find an asset like that laying on the ground. You have to put in a lot of energy to earn that, because that's what it's worth, right? So if you're willing to put in that high level of effort, then that's a big part of it. And another thing that a lot of people fall down or they don't succeed is because they fail to test, as I teach inside of the intermediate sprints. I teach you to test things out and try different ideas out and follow the data to quickly refine your message to where it converts really well. A lot of people just keep sending the same thing over and over and over again, and they don't get results. And then they're like, why didn't I get any results? I sent the same email 400 times. Like, yeah, well, that was a poor email that you sent 400 times, right? It'd be like not knowing how to throw a hook, and you throw it at your opponent 400 times and it doesn't work because you're just like slapping him lightly because you don't know the right form, right? You need to iterate on the actual outreach until you actually get it to where it works. So,
yeah, that was exactly my point, because I was just thinking that, like, I mean, I could possibly get a client by the end of August, but it's like when September rolls around, it's probably time to go back to university and want to ideally get in a place where you bring in some money, and so it's more realistic to like parents and whatnot that you can drop out.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like go full time on and out. And once you get to university, if you still, for some reason, like if you did everything I just said, and for some reason you couldn't make the client, you got sick and threw up for a week or something, who knows, right? Then just keep working on it while you go to uni, right? You still have time in uni. Uni's a joke, right? Do what you got to do and then land some money and then drop out when you've got the big stack of cash, right? Like Tate talked about in like the broadcast you did last week. So yeah.
Yeah. Cheers. Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah. Good point. All right, Leif, it's your turn for the Q&A. What do you got?
Yeah, so one of the things that I realized when entering the course, that sales calls is a good majority of closing in clients, and obviously being 14, I don't have the voice for it, so a lot of people might say, oh,
Wrong.
this kid. Really?
Yeah, you're totally wrong, dude. Like, your voice is not a problem. Like, your
Really?
age is literally not a problem. It's 0% a problem, right? That's a lie that's been told to you since you were like a little kid, that you're not big enough to do something. Like, that's totally wrong. If you have a clear understanding of their business, you show up as a professional, follow the process I teach for sales calls. They would be like, oh, this kid gets it. He's not some punk. This kid gets it. If you write well, if you take the time to write well, and it sounds like you've got good enough insights from what we were talking about that you're probably a pretty decent writer. They don't care. If you can if you can demonstrate your ability to write, show up as a professional on the call, and lower the risk for them when they first start by doing a revenue share deal or a performance-based thing, they will test you out. And if you can get them results, they will pay you money. They don't care how old you are. You could be 14, you could be 40, you could be 109. They don't care. As long as you can get them results and you show up as a professional. So
all right. Yeah.
That's a
and
lie.
my second question is that I saw a lot of people in the intermediate chat mentioning Udemy prospecting. Have you heard what Udemy is?
Have I ever heard what Udemy is? Yes, I definitely know about
Yes.
Udemy. I know about Udemy prospecting. It's an effective way to do it. What's your question?
So would there possibly be in the near future a video on how to prospect on Udemy? Because I know how to use Udemy. I joined Udemy.
It's pretty simple. You have search terms, you search for courses, you check the gurus, you see if they're a good fit, and you reach out to them. It's the same basic prospecting pattern that I teach you for all the other platforms. Just apply to Udemy. Right. And there's some guys there's some guys in intermediate chat that are putting together some resources for that, and you can ask them, and they'll definitely give you any additional fine-tuned pointers on exactly how to do that today in 2022. Yeah,
that makes sense. Thank you, man.
Yeah, good questions. All right, Ben, what's your question, my friend?
Oh yeah, so I've seen that most people structured their copies like literally just like small sentences and then spaced out. And I get that that's like more visually appealing to the reader, but I feel like when I've done it in the past, mine are stronger when I can do like 2 sentences or like.
Cool.
Or like
2 sentences.
But I've seen that all the other people have done it differently.
I prefer one idea per paragraph. So usually that's 1 sentence per line. It's easier for them to read. It's one thing, it's something you need to think about. You guys need to start being conscious about, is that most of the time the writing is that you send out to your clients and that they're going to send out to their customers is going to be read on a phone, right? So the phone takes the entire width of your desktop and it squishes it together. So something that's 1 line is actually 3 lines on a phone, right? If something's 2 lines, it's like 6, 7, 8 lines, and it gets really hard to read. You know what I'm saying? So you need to start thinking about the mobile experience in addition to just the desktop experience, which is why 1 line usually works. But hey, if you write something and it's 2 lines and it fits good and it flows well and they can read it and absorb it, there's no copywriting SWAT team that's gonna kick down your door and fill you full of bullets, right? You're good, man. You're good. Like, just if it works, it works. Then you're fine. But it's a concept or a principle to keep in mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Cool. All right, Edward, what's your question, my friend?
Hello, Andrew. My question is, do you think that cold outreach without complimenting can be effective? Because I feel like it doesn't really suit my style, and I would much rather say something like I'm relatable to them, like I know marketing can be really overwhelming, and then continue to provide a free value or something.
So there's 2 main reasons why you do compliments, right? And if you can accomplish these with some other form of something, then by all means do it, all right? I'm totally cool with it. Here's why I have you guys do compliments. 1, it shows that you are a person who is at least familiar with their stuff and you are sending this message directly to them, for them, and no one else, right? If it is an email message that would make sense in anybody else's inbox, right? Then it means that it's not for them. And if it's not for them, why do they care, right? So the compliment allows you to demonstrate that it is for them. And it does another thing beyond that, right? Because it's one thing if you like scrape their detail, like you could run a web scraper and get their first name and their product name and their domain name, and you can plug those all in at variables. Like they know that, right? They're not stupid. They know that you can do that sort of insert variable here. But if you put a compliment, that's one line that shows, that demonstrates 100% that you paid attention to something that they did at least once for a few seconds, it shows that you at least are familiar with them, right? So that's a really cool way that you demonstrate that with a compliment, right? Which is why I think compliments are an important way to start off. You prove right off the bat, hey, I'm here, and I actually know a little bit about you. So what I'm suggesting, I think might actually be relevant, right? And this is not a robot. It's not a spam thing, right? The second thing, compliments trigger something called the principle of reciprocity. Are you familiar with that principle?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Who in the chat has read Influence by Robert Cialdini? Someone's got to have read it. We got a couple of experienced guys in here. You guys have read it, right?
Yeah.
Boom. Yeah. Okay. Would you like to share with the group what the principle of reciprocity is?
Sure.
Why it's important.
Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you. Go for it, my friend.
Okay. Basically, it's the principle of I do something for you, so therefore you feel almost obligated to do something back for me in return. Let me try to think of an example. Well, here's one, like maybe you guys wouldn't know of it, but like I used to work in the timeshare industry. So what they would do is they try to sell you a timeshare property, but before they do that, they would, give you a free dinner and whatnot, and give you a free ride to the location. So you almost feel like obligated.
Yeah,
to
it's
make
a
the purchase because you've already been given something. Go ahead.
100%. That's a great example. Yeah, sorry, you cut out for a second. I thought you were done, but yeah, that's a great example, right? People, we are hardwired to try to do something nice for someone who's done something nice to us, right? We are hardwired. Like it is biological, right? It's how our ancestors survived in tribes, right? Someone does something good for me, I need to try to do something good for them, so that we can now work together and save each other from tigers and find enough, food to survive, right? Like that's what we do, right? So the compliment triggers a feeling of reciprocity. You take some time to say something nice, genuine, don't make up compliments. Like actually give a genuine compliment, right? It triggers a feeling of reciprocity, and they at least are going to say, you know what, this guy took the time to give me a compliment. I'm at least going to read his email, right? So it increases their ability to do that. So now if you can accomplish that in the first line with something else, by all means go for it. But until then, I recommend you do a compliment. Something you need to understand, right? We might have a personal style. You might have an idea of how you want to present it, where you talk about yourself and how cool you are and how much you understand their situation. They don't care. They care about themselves, and they care about value that you can bring to them. They don't care about you, right? So you can test other things out. By all means, go out and test it. If you find something that works and does all those things, I'd be more than happy for you. By all means, do it. But I think compliments are probably the best way to accomplish those psychological effects. But if you can find something else that does it, by all means. Does that make sense, Edward?
Yes, thank you. And one more thing, still about the compliment. I assume it needs to be kind of short, but still good enough. So it's like it's not 8 lines or something like that on the phone. I feel like they do not have large enough. People don't have a large enough attention span nowadays to read such a long, and they just get off.
Yeah, think of the mini-skirt rule, right? Long enough to cover the important parts, but short enough to keep things interesting, right? Yeah, it's the eternal balance.
Okay, thank you.
How do I get that much in this short of line? For sure. Good questions. Thank you. All right, let's go to the next one. Amir, what's your question?
Yeah. Is the descript element always have to be a statement, or like can it be also in a question format?
You can definitely be in a question. Questions are an excellent way to disrupt and capture attention. The human brain can't ignore questions for some reason. So if you ask a question that is tied to an opportunity or a threat, you are going to get a high level of engagement for sure.
Okay. The one more question I have is, I'm in the intermediates now, and I'm only at the first chapter, which is finding niches. And I'm actually struggling to understand the situation actually. is niche actually just the keywords that you search, or is it
No.
like a actual product that solves a problem?
It's more the product market, right? So it's a group of people and a group of products to solve those people's needs, right? So fitness training for stay-at-home mothers might be a niche, right? A small sub niche. Investment advice for dentists might be another niche, right? The actual keywords you might search to find content the businesses in those niches create, that's completely different. It's like another layer deeper, right? Does that I hope you understand the difference between a niche and keywords.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One more
Let's
thing
give
I
you
have.
Yeah, I'm going to give you an example of a keyword. So like, let's say that first one. So let's say you're a business that creates products to help soccer moms stay fit, right? You might ask yourself, what types of content might that person create to try and attract soccer moms to their business? Oh, they might try and say how to train even when you're a busy mom. Then you search that. That'd be the keyword you go and search to go and find videos that person might make. You see what I'm saying? That's an example of the keywords that match the niche.
So that will lead you to a product that the audience might purchase.
It'll lead you to content that will be connected to a product and a business, right? Yeah.
Yeah. The one more thing is you talked about one big idea, right? So I was writing a copy on a sales page of Live Off Your Passion. So the main thing is that there are some 8 common problems that people struggle with, right? So I might be struggling with one thing, and another person might not be struggling with that thing, but another thing. So in the first 2 lines, I list out some problems, and I ask like, is this one of you?
8
right?
main problems that are keeping you from getting what you want, or problems, the things that you don't like about your life, because they're different. And we've been using the same word to describe those 2 different things, but there's 2 different kinds of problems, right? When I say problems, sometimes I mean, which means now I need to come up with a better way to say it, but sometimes I mean things you don't like about in your current life, right? You have problems in your life that you don't like. Oh, the complaining neighbor, or my boss doesn't like me. Like, those are problems, right? And then there are problems that are things you run into as you try and solve your problem. I try and make money online, but I don't know if I should do drop shipping or this or that. There's too many options. How do I pick one, right? That might be a problem that I experience as I'm trying to get into my dream outcome. Whereas there are negative things over here that are motivating me to leave, right? So when you're saying, let's call these mistakes, let's call the things that you try and let's talk about the problems that are.
I have a list.
One second.
I
Let me
read
flesh this out. So, if let's talk about, let's say, like, moving forward, let's say things that when I'm trying to move into my dream state, let's call the problems that I run into there like roadblocks. Let's call those roadblocks, and let's call the problems and frustrations I experience that maybe want to change. Let's call those problems. So, are you talking about problems or roadblocks?
Roadblocks.
Okay, so they have different roadblocks. I think it's okay to talk about different roadblocks or list out different roadblocks, but you want to focus on one main desire or one main problem or desire, one main frustration or desire, one main motivator over here. And you might list a set of problems is something you need to solve, a set of roadblocks is something you need to solve. But I think you pick one main motivator and you use that as the main heartbeat of your email or your short form. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So even though you might have all these roadblocks, you connect it to a desire and you amplify it. And
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. Igor, what's your question?
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, like, is there some concrete algorithm how to break up a copy into paragraphs? Because I plan to do it like intuitive. I don't really know how.
There's no concrete paragraph. The rule of thumb, I'd say, is try and keep one idea per line. So like basically one sentence per paragraph, right? But you can do whatever you want. There's no rule. There's no hard, defined, programmatic way to do this. This is a soft skill. This isn't a hard skill. This is humans and human communication and language. There's a lot of blurred lines, right? I can give you some general rules of thumb, but there's a lot of blurred lines.
Yeah, okay, understood. Thank you.
Excellent. Javon, what's your question?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can.
I had a question about the avatar and
good.
I think in one of the emails, people were, or I guess they were saying that I guess that he knew that he was smarter than other customers or smarter than other people. Where would you get that information if we're basing these avatars off of real people? Like, are we making up the avatar, or is this avatar an actual person who lives out in the world? And then how are we assuming certain things about these avatars?
So when possible, you want the avatar to be a real person. If you're working with a specific client, you want to go find their best client, and he now becomes your avatar, or at least the version of him that existed before he started using the client's products or whatever. He's now your avatar, right? And you want to ask him and get as much information from him as possible to answer those types of questions, right? You are going to have to start inferring some of these beliefs, though. You have to read the context clues and be like, I can tell that this is the kind of guy that thinks he's smarter than everybody else, right? You have to just kind of use your human wisdom to like pick that up, right? Half the time. If you don't have an actual defined real person that you can use, like an actual client or a customer, what you can do is go out and create one using all the information. You go out and read a bunch of information, find a bunch of stuff about the target audience, and then you like assemble the pieces and parts into one person, like a Dr. Frankenstein. You create one instance of that person. You're like, this is now Steve. This is Steve. Steve believes this. Steve acts like this. This is what Steve wants. This is some things that Steve says. And you take all that target audience information and you can compile it and crystallize it into one person, right? And you are going to make a few educated guesses about some of his worldview beliefs and stuff like that, right? Like that's a common question I get a lot in the beginner section. Like, wait, do I have to get, like, how do I know this? Where do I find that? So you might have to guess some of it, right? But read the context clues, use your human wisdom to try and like figure out who he is as best you can. And if you don't get it all perfectly right, that's okay. You'll refine it as you move forward.
And then, so are you actually reaching out to these customers and asking them certain questions, or are you doing that or
yes. No? With your clients, definitely a good idea. How far are you? Are you in the beginner sprints, the intermediate sprints?
I'm in intermediate, but I think why I'm struggling is because I don't really understand that whole avatar part. So I think as soon as I understand that a little more, I'll get better.
Yeah. You're gonna guess on a lot of stuff. It's going to be refined, especially like I'm gonna speak to you as an intermediate, guys, because it's gonna be important for you, right? If you're doing free value or trying to talk to them and provide ideas, right, you're going to make your best guess about their ideal avatar. They probably already have some ideas about who their ideal client is, right? Sometimes you're going to get it wrong, right? You can usually tell who they think their avatar is from their sales messaging, right? If they're conscious of it, right? But you're going to make your best guess. You're going to send it over to them. You make your best guess about their voice. If you're doing the free value route, they might say to you, yeah, that's not exactly right. And you say, okay, tell me a little bit more. They tell you a little bit more. And then you, bada bing, bada boom, you really quickly adapt what you did to match that different avatar, match that different voice. So send it over to them and continue on the process, right? Once you land a client, one of the first things you do during your discovery project is going to be defining who the ideal customer is and doing that initial research to make sure you get the messaging and the voice right. So that's gonna be back and forth between you and your client. Maybe their customer, an ideal customer, you might bring them into the loop and ask them questions. But that's gonna be part of that post-sale process.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Question. Okay, so we're gonna do Alexi, Jonathan, Mohammed, and then Benny, and then we're gonna call it quits for the day. Alexi, what do you got for me? What's your question?
Good afternoon, Andrew. So my question is dedicated to keeping the prospect interested while he's reading your copy. Right now, I'm in the beginner sprints. And as far as I understood, you should start your copy with the fascination as a heading, but should you put that fascination itself in the specific parts of your copy? And what do you personally think the best way to keep your prospect interested or like entertained while he's reading your copy? And what is the best way to make him reading actually?
So this is different between short form and long form. Long form, you start having to create multiple re-entry points in your copy. But since you're a beginner and we're talking about short form, I'm going to simplify the statements to focus on that. With short form copy, the best way to keep your reader interested is keep it short, right? If you go off long-winded talks about something, you're more likely going to lose your guy the longer he talks. Keep it short, under 150 words, right? The next thing is you grab their attention at the very beginning with something that's really, really important and relevant to them, right? And you tease, you imply that there's some hope, some solution, some answer to their question that will be revealed to them at the end of the copy or through the end of you talking, right? And as long as everything else you write is low friction after that, as long as it's stuff that's relevant to them, as long as it's stuff that doesn't detract from the experience, it's not like super bad grammar or run-on sentences or terrible things like that, they will stay and read because it's relevant and interesting to them, right? That's the best way to keep them reading, keep them interested, is just to write really well. But make sure you keep it short, you disrupt correctly, you add a level of intrigue or tease that there's some type of hope involved in your copy, and keep it short and keep the friction low, and they will read the entire thing. Did that answer your question?
Oh yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Cool, good question. Jonathan, what do you got?
Can you hear me?
I can.
How's it going?
Great.
So
easy question.
So no, so I'm still like in the beginner courses. This is my first week into it. I'll be a full circle by Sunday. So I've only just been really just going through like through the sprints and taking notes and everything. I haven't really like experimented yet with like doing any projects, mostly due to like I had like an idea of how to go about it, but now like watching you break down all of the examples and everything, and everyone else's questions and whatnot, the idea I have for it now is like the best way, like I guess in my head, the best way to go about like creating like an email to like draw a customer. Like I have experience with sales, so like it would be like not directly show them like I'm trying to sell them a product, but like still sell them a product by leading them into that product without like making them feel like I'm selling it to them. I'm not sure if I worded that completely well.
Yeah,
but
that's kind of a rambling question. So is your question the one you're about? Oh, you infected me with the confusion bug. 1 second.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So are you asking me if when you're writing short form copy, the purpose is to guide them and make them curious and interested in the product without necessarily selling the product? Is that what you're
Correct.
asking me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Correct.
The answer is yes. That is the purpose of short form copy. It's a build of interest, a little bit of desire, a little bit of intrigue and curiosity, and then send them off to the sales page where they can actually be sold to. Yeah.
Okay.
So your appointment setting, not selling.
Okay. So in hindsight, it's like selling without selling, and also using a little bit of psychology to like kind of just lead them into that process.
Sure. That's a good answer for you, and it'll keep you moving in the right direction. Yes.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Excellent. All right. Mohammed, what do you got for me, my friend? Mr. Mohammed Asim, what do you got? Oh, he's got 3 seconds. I'm going to move on. Oh, there we go. He got it.
Sorry. I forgot to
You're
lower
good.
my hand. I'm sorry.
You're good. You're good.
I don't have a question.
You don't have a question anymore. Oh, bonus. All right. Benny, what do you got? What's your question?
All right, so I've been thinking about a lot of questions, to be honest, but the ones that I've been thinking about the most is about the avatar, actually. So I've heard a lot about the avatar's pain, right? And that you should be looking at the avatar's pain and desire, but I kind of don't know how to link the pain and the desire into the solution. I kind of know it, but I kind of don't know it. Do you got any tips for me, or anyone else having the same problem?
Sure. Let me help you kind of understand how these concepts connect, right? So you have an avatar, you have a person. In this case, let's just use you, right? Let's just forget about avatars for a second. Let's use a person. You can think of yourself, right? You have things that motivate you to act, right? There's pain that makes you want to move away from pain. You want to move towards pleasure, right? You want to move away from your current situation, the pain and frustration of your current situation, towards the alluring, desirable future you have in the future, right? These are things that motivate you, right? This is like the rocket that like pushes you forward in any direction. Now, as you try and move like towards that dream outcome, you run into roadblocks. You run into problems, things that you don't know how to solve that are keeping you from getting to that dream solution, right? So let's say in your case, you want to write really good copy and become a wealthy individual, but you don't understand what an avatar is. You keep trying to use the con term avatar and connect all these ideas together, but you run into the roadblock of not understanding what those concepts are, right? Now that's your roadblock, right? Now the solution is there's some information out there that you're going to learn on the sales call right now with me, right? Or this not sales call, this discovery call. Wow, this sales review call. You're going to learn this information right now, but that information is going to help you understand what an avatar is, so then you can continue moving on that path towards your dream outcome, right? That information is the solution. You need to understand that information, right? Now, the product or the delivery vehicle for that solution would be this call, or perhaps the avatar video in the beginner sprints or something like that, right? So your avatar is in a situation, he's motivated to move away from that towards a different type of future. He's running into roadblocks along the way, and there's solutions that help him overcome those roadblocks in his dream state. And there's products to deliver those solutions to the guy, right? That's kind of how it all connects. Did that answer your question? Did that illuminate the thing, or do you have additional questions there?
It helped me. It helped me a lot, actually. But there's one more thing that basically also does it. I actually wrote this down. Is there a way to make, like, is it a good thing to be giving bigger hints in the short type copy? Like, can you do some bigger types of hint and still make it a good copy?
When you say bigger types of hint, what do you mean exactly?
Let's say, I'm gonna take for an example like a football. So you want to make it like, you want to hint that it's a football, right? So you do some big kinds of hint, like you shoot at the goal or whatever, something like that.
Yeah, so you can hint all you want, and you can get as close to revealing the answer as possible. But if you actually give away too much information and they know what it is and there's no doubt in their mind anymore about what it might be, then you've gone too far, right? So you can hint right up to that line, but if you cross that line, then you've ruined it, right? You've now given away the answer. They have no desire anymore. If there's still unanswered questions in their mind, you're fine. If all the questions are answered, you're in trouble, essentially.
All right. Yeah, and yeah, that's it for me. Yeah, that's it.
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, cool. Hey guys, this has been a great call. We've gone over some really cool things. I've enjoyed it. I survived all of the loud noises and poor Wi-Fi experiences, but we got through it. We answered some questions. We went through some pretty cool concepts. Those of you who still have questions, ask me the questions, tag me in the chats. I'll get to them. We just don't have enough time to do it all on the call today, but we'll continue to do calls moving forward. But yeah, it's been good. If you have any questions, tag me in the chats, and we will do this again next week. I will talk to you guys later.